900 hours Central Africa time on this Wednesday, the 22nd of March. Now, yesterday was Human Rights Day. Jumbo Africa. I'm Elvis Presley.
I'm Kendall Makhamate.
We'll be with you until 12 o'clock today. Now, today we focus on a very interesting story. We'll call it interesting. It's actually very disturbing. It's on a woman seen in a heated altercation with a man at a Taximo Spur restaurant at the Glen Shopping Mall, who has since apologized for her reaction to his conduct in front of children. Now, Spurs banned the man from all its restaurants. So the question then we posed this morning, Kendall.
We'd like to find out from you, what are your thoughts on that incident at that Spur yesterday?
Well, we'll take a look at some of your comments. This one from Susan Hayden says, nothing has changed. The culture of patriarchy and abuse is still alive and well. It's a sad day for South Africa indeed.
And another one from Shanae van der Merwe. It's sad people can't see past the black and white to see the poor parenting of both sides. Both were wrong, according to Shanae van der Merwe.
Nahaza says, Spur video, I couldn't believe that. That could happen on Human Rights Day. I'm asking myself, where was the management? Really? Some people? These are some of your comments. We'll come back to some of them. You can send them through and we'll read them as we continue. But we're also conducting a poll on the current water crisis that we have, not just in our country, but worldwide. A United Nations report suggests that countries must reuse wastewater for human consumption, Kendall.
And that is why we're asking you, do you take the water crisis seriously? We've given you 3 options, and the first one is, well, we've got 111 votes that have come in, Elvis.
Yes, and so far we have 81 that's saying yes, 7% are saying no, we don't take it serious, and only 12% saying, what crisis? It's pity. Well, there you have it. Let us know what's on your minds. Let's take a quick look at some of your comments coming through on that issue. This one from Gobeni says, no.
Temba Slakisha Bango says, Newsroom, yes, why not? Hashtag rainfall.
And Malibongwe says, why are we not recycling water inside? A valid point and a valid question there from Malibongwe. Well, there we have it. Now, we were going to give you our headlines, but we have a very important issue happening right now. Police will give an update this morning on the investigation into the break-in and the theft at the office of the Chief Justice in Midrand. Let's go over there live.
The arrest of 3 men in Mamelodi over the past few days. The team followed leads and information which resulted in operations being conducted on identified addresses in Mamelodi in search of the stolen equipment and the perpetrators of this crime. During the search of the identified premises, 3 men were arrested linked to the break-in at the offices of the Chief Justice to enable further investigation into the matter. Various items, including unlicensed firearms and fake identities, were seized during the operations. These items are considered evidential material which will be presented in court. We are also pleased to report that a vehicle which was possibly used as a getaway car during the commission of the crime has been seized by our members. Further interviewing of those who were arrested revealed the identity of a person with critical information required to solve the crime and the recovery of the stolen IT equipment. The South African Police Service is calling upon Mr. Nkosi Natim Simango, who was in the vicinity of Mamelodi on the day of the arrest and who has valuable information and insight into the commission of this crime, to approach the investigating officer and or report at the nearest police station to assist in this matter. The 3 suspects already in custody are expected to appear in court in Mamelodi today. They will face charges relating to other crimes they were possibly linked to, pending further investigation on this matter. As the South African Police Service, we record our confidence in the criminal justice system and in particular the courts of this country. We believe that the seriousness of this crime and the stature of the office of the Chief Justice will be considered in the further processing of the cases the apprehended people are linked to. The outcry and outrage of citizens over this incident is justified because brazen criminals targeted the office of the highest judicial officer in our country. However, our team's speedy response to the crime and the thorough investigation of this crime will not go unnoticed, should be commended and recognized by all. The South African Police Service has noted with serious concern misplaced and/or irresponsible utterances and allegations made undermining the mandate of the South African Police Service provided for in the Constitution of our country to prevent, combat, and investigate crime. These statements are demoralizing to the hardworking members of the South African Police Service and are not assisting in the investigation process. We call upon responsible citizens and leaders from all walks of life to take up their rightful place in society and contribute positively and constructively in the fight against crime. Making baseless and unfounded allegations against any individual or leaders in government is not helpful during the course of investigation of crimes like that which manifested itself at the offices of the Chief Justice. Casting a shadow of doubt on the capability of the South African Police Service to investigate any crime committed is not assisting. Anyone with credible information relating to this crime or any other crime committed must feel free to approach the investigating officers and deposit such information to enable the resolution of such crimes. The significant breakthrough, together with the speedy resolution and/or breakthroughs in cases of baby Suapiwe in KwaZulu-Natal, as well as the Otia heist, bears testimony to the fact that the South African Police Service remains committed to prioritizing and thoroughly investigating serious crimes such as these in a bid to reduce the incidence of serious crime and violent crimes in our country. We have also sanctioned a security assessment for the purposes of advising on the enhancement of security at the offices of the criminal justice system, offices of the Chief Justice. We are extremely pleased that our members are working tirelessly to ensure that the perpetrators of this crime are brought to book. I am urging the people of South Africa to continue to work closely with our members to ensure that incidents which seeks to undermine our Constitution must not have a place in our society. The leadership of the South African Police Service in all provinces continues to intensify their crime combating strategies and operations to ensure a safe and secure environment for all. The Back to Basics approach adopted by the South African Police Service, which encompasses the thorough investigation of all crimes committed, is yielding results. We thank you all.
Thank you very much, General. I introduced everyone but myself. I'm Brigadier Sally de Beer, Head of Media Relations in the SABC. We'll take a round of questions and then we will ask the General to respond. Looking at the front rows first, Barry, and then over there, and Karen. And can we try and stick to the topic of the day, please? Please introduce yourselves.
Morning, General, and to the delegation. Barry Bateman, Eyewitness News. General, are you able to at this stage disclose any information related to the 3 suspects arrested? Given the nature of this particular crime, the facility that was burgled, suggestions usually the case is an inside job. Somebody has very specific information to enable them to get in or some assistance of some sort. Are you able to say, was this an inside job? Or have you located anybody who possibly assisted these thieves? Thank you.
Marika Kumar from Jacaranda FM. Just to check, the information obviously that was taken, that was on these computers, some of it might be of quite a sensitive nature. It's to do with people's personal information. What exactly is at risk here for people? I mean, is there a possibility of giving extra security to people that might be at risk here? And then the process of getting some of that information back and possibly gauging how far this information is moved.
Thank you, Karen.
Karen Vaughan from UNCA. The suspect, the person whose name you mentioned, is he a suspect or does he have information? And also we understand, I've been to the office of the Chief Justice, there are CCTV cameras there. And have there been any reason why the police haven't released the images or image of the suspects so that they could be identified and tracked down by the public? Or have those people been arrested? Are the people who were arrested in that footage, or are you able to say that? And have the police been able to recover or are in the process of recovering the stolen computers? Because obviously that would be a huge source of relief to the judges.
Okay, I'll take one more question in this round. The lady next to Karen.
Valdi Carlson, TVC News. I'm wondering if you know what the motive was for this robbery.
Okay, thank you, General. When you're ready.
Thank you. Thanks for the questions, Barry. On information relating to the people arrested, we are unable to disclose further details in that regard. We do not at this stage have information on whether it was an inside job or not, because not one of the three is a staff member. The three are just criminals that are out there. As to whether there was an inside job and or collusion, the investigation is still at the preliminary level. Maybe further work which is being done will dictate. Marika, I'm unable to say much about the information on the computers, because I am obviously not within the establishment of the Office of the Chief Justice. What we know is that there are 15 computers that were stolen, and ours is to work hard to make sure that they are recovered. As to what detailed information is loaded on those computers, it is not for me to tell. And I mean, that goes me not knowing what information is in there. I may not necessarily express myself around the risk. Safe to say that we are concerned that there was a security breach at the offices of the Chief Justice. It is for that reason that we, amongst others, sanctioned the security assessment of the premises. Karen, in my statement, I said I never spoke about Nkosinathi Msimango as a suspect. We said further interviewing of those who were arrested revealed the identity of a person with critical information required to resolve the crime and the recovery of the stolen IT equipment. And then I went further to say, as the South African Police Service, we are calling upon Mr. Nkosinathi Msimango, who was in the vicinity of Mamelodi on the day of the arrest, and who has valuable information and insight into the commission of this crime, to approach the investigating officer and or report at the nearest police station to assist in this case. I think it's written in simple English. Nowhere there are we talking of a suspect. If you arrive at that conclusion, that's your own conclusion, it's not ours. CCTV footage, it's a subject of further investigation. There is no reason for us to make such public. We will continue to process that footage to develop a better understanding of what is it that happened on the day. We obviously, in the very same paragraph that I have read, you would have noted that we say Mr. Nkosinati Msimango's valuable information will assist in the recovery of the IT equipment stolen. So that means we did not lay our hands on that equipment yet, but it is a matter we are following up, even with the interviewing of the suspects that are there. I forgot the last person's name, but the motive, we can't tell what the motive is at this stage. All what we know is that a criminal activity has realized at the offices of the criminal justice, the Chief Justice. Further investigation may reveal that motive. We are not there yet. Thanks, Aline.
Thank you very much, General. Let me just say that we are very pressed for time. You may have noticed we've got a parade on today, and all three on the panel in uniform are speakers at the parade. So can I take another round of questions, please? Okay, note 1 and 2, and 3 with Karen, and then we will wrap it up. Thank you.
Good morning, General. Anton Meyer from Pretoria FM. Do you expect to make more arrests after further investigation? And then secondly, is there reason to believe that that there's a relation between the break-in at the Social Development Director, former DG at Social Development, Zane Dango's house, and the burglary at the office of the Chief Justice?
Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. I'm General Tricia from the SABC. I have 2 questions. The one is it possible to perhaps disclose which judges' files were stolen, if it's possible, if we can get that information? The other question I have is, are you investigating the possibility that there might be a serious link between the break-ins and the investigations of serious cases, for instance, that the break-ins are perhaps targeting people who are investigating serious matters or involved in judicial processes in serious matters? Are you investigating that possibility?
Thank you. And Karen?
Just on the Zane Dango issue, I mean, he publicly said that when he reported the break-in, that he was told by the police that it wasn't, they wouldn't allow him to open a case because nothing was taken. Could you, I mean, I understand that subsequent to that, you know, there may have been developments in terms of him in fact laying a case, but on a principle level, is that the stance of the South African Police Service, that if someone tries to break in and is unsuccessful, you can't lay a case? You just talk about the principle at the heart of that particular allegation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, General, and welcome to the Times. I think you must have had traffic on your way here.
Karen, on the Zane Dango's matter, I've listened to what was said even in the media. It's a matter that I will want to follow up on. If nothing was taken, it doesn't necessarily mean that there was no crime committed. You have people who are foreign in that house that found access in there. So that's why there is provision in our common law crimes that there is a crime called attempted. It's either an attempted robbery or an attempted burglary and so on. We will follow the matter up to understand what is it that it is meant when someone say we are not able to open a case, and who is it that said so, so that we have a better understanding of what happens. Without facts, I'm not able to say much on that particular matter. And maybe, Treasure, the question of which files, of which judges, I don't know. All I know is that there are 15 computers from the Office of the Chief Justice that were stolen. As to what was in those files or contained in those computers, it's detail that is a subject of further investigation. We can't say much about that now. I don't know when you talk about this break-in and want to relate it to other investigations or other matters, serious matters that are being processed by the judiciary. I don't have evidence to that effect. I don't have anyone with credible information that was deposited with us which warrants a follow-up investigation. And that's why we are calling upon everyone to desist from making irresponsible statements and linking certain persons with this crime without any substantial information that could assist us in the resolution of this crime. Anton, yes, we expect more arrests. The team is hard at work pursuing information at our disposal. And unfortunately, I can't help you in drawing the relationship between what happened in the Office of the Chief Justice to the one that happened in the former DG house. I don't have any supporting information in that regard.
Thank you very much, General. I see our late arrival. We can allow him to ask a question before we close. Thank you. Great.
Sorry, General Graham Hoskin from the Times. In connection with this person that you're looking for, this Mr. Mungo, can you give any more information on him? What in assisting the police?
Graham, you will find the answer in the statement that has been released. We said he will provide valuable information. So it's clearly articulated in that statement.
I mean, you can't elaborate on the kind of information. I mean, is it the best that he knows the individuals or how the type of valuable information?
That's exactly what we have spoken to during this press briefing.
Thank you very much, Generals, and thank you very much for being here. As I said, we are very pressed for time to have the parade on, so unfortunately we won't be able to afford a series of one-on-one interviews after this. And if I could just ask, the parade that we've gone on is for the Special Task Force. So that is why we haven't invited the media, because we may not publish their faces, as with other special forces throughout the world. But if anyone does decide to stop in there, there'll be some good parachuting. Please, no photographs and no visuals of our members on parade's faces. Thank you very much.
I think, Sally, we must emphasize that part. Can you just allow us not to be irresponsible? Do not publish any pictures of any one of the Special Task Force members. We are pleading with you. Let us not be irresponsible.
Thank you very much. We are now concluded with our meeting.
Acting General Komotso Paslani giving us an update on the three suspects that were arrested in connection with the burglary, the Office of the Chief Justice. And as you heard, at this point in time, ongoing investigations. Meanwhile, the woman seen in a heated altercation with a man at a Spur restaurant has apologized for her reaction to his angry conduct in front of children. In a video posted on social media, the man is seen approaching Lebohang Mabuya's table and can be heard using foul language. She replied with similar language. Following the incident at the Texamo Spur at the Glen Shopping Mall in the south of Johannesburg, the Spur has banned the man from all its restaurants.
Excuse me? Yes. Hey, I'm looking through the window and she's hitting my child against the head.
Look here, you won't come here and be a bully. Just leave us
Is that so?
You can't come here and be
Is
a
that
bully.
so?
Such a big man being a bully.
I'm telling you to do something.
Don't do anything.
So you're push-slap here.
Can Timo tlogele. Wat tla thusa ba mo sepetlele?
Try to leave me a seat. Such a bully of a man. Such a coward. Who the hell do you think you are? Fuck you, man. Fuck you.
No, stop it! You stop it! Can Timo
This is a woman.
No. You can't just unless you want to say something, you have a problem. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. You are not paying my bill. You too. Fuck you. Ask. Who the hell do you think? What are you doing? You are such a fucking bully. You are a fucking bully. You are a fucking bully. Racist. Bloody shit. How can you go how? This. How? You want to how? You can't do that. No. Hit me and you see. Hit me, you get what you want.
This on Human Rights Day. So we're asking you, what are your thoughts on the Spur incident? Let us know on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom as well as on the Facebook page. Let's take a look at what you have to say. On the Twitter handle, this one from Malibongwe says, what happened at the Spur was bad, but what worries me is the way that people reacted in social media about what happened. Dingezweni says, we are living in a country with a ticking time bomb, racism, ready to explode. It's a matter of time before all hell breaks loose. This one from Brigo Brick says, that men, oh, he's probably a man, is a coward. That's not racism. That's abuse of the woman and the children at that table, says Brigo. This one from Afatle says, both parents were wrong. That situation shouldn't have reached that stage. It's not a matter of race, says Hausa. Temba says, I think other people, they don't care about Human Rights Day. Arrest that man, hashtag SABC News. Now, those are some of your comments. You can keep them coming. We're asking you, what do you make of that incident? Back to the news. Now, President Jacob Zuma says that government will continue to prioritize economic transformation, fighting crime, and providing social assistance to the needy. He was speaking at the commemoration of the Human Rights Day in King Williamstown in the Eastern Cape yesterday.
Also recommit ourselves to advance fundamental human rights and the restoration of human dignity to the black people in particular, who were brutalized and dehumanized by the twin systems of colonialism and apartheid. The economy must be unbundled so that we can loosen white monopoly control and allow the entry of black people into the mainstream of the South African economy.
Now, today is International Water Day, World Water Day, that is, and they're celebrating it at Durban, the ICC. Now, SABC spoke to Nomvula Makonyane, the Minister of Water and Sanitation, about the relevance of this year's theme, wastewater, and how it applies to South Africa.
It's the first time that we have a conference of this magnitude being hosted in Africa, in South Africa in particular, focusing on the use of grey water as an untapped resource. Given the realities of climate change, and worse for us as a country that has been able to survive over the last 4 years with a severe drought that we have ever seen over more than 100 years. But also the world has recognized our interventions, and hence His Excellency President Jacob Zuma is one of the 12 heads of state who are part of the advisory, the high-level panel that advises the UN Secretary on the issues of water and sanitation, which is the Sustainable Development Goal number 6. It therefore means that there is something that South Africa is doing, but also there is something that the world wants to take South Africa along on, to make sure that, amongst other things, we contribute in line with the theme that President Zuma has been assigned amongst the 12 heads of state to look at sustainable provision and reliability of water and sanitation to 10 billion people of the world. So he is the face of that particular program, and that has come because in South Africa we've been able to have what we call the war on leaks. We've got an Adopt the River. We hear in KwaZulu-Natal that is going to its 5th year with the drought, but we have never had a severe loss of life and crop. We've been able to adapt. We've also adapted towards the use not of wastewater, of grey water that is water that has been used before, being able to recycle it. We've also been able to explore desalination. We've been able to change the methods of irrigation. In Gauteng, we've seen the private sector, some of the multinational companies being able to use rain harvested water for them to augment what they have been able to do. And out of this, there will come a declaration that will be presented by the president, and it will be beamed throughout the world. The United Nations is not having anything in its precincts. The main event of the United Nations is what President Jacob Zuma will be hosting. He's here not as the president of South Africa, but a representative of the world on this particular day. Quite a magnificent thing, but also an honor for us South Africa.
It certainly is. I mean, it really is when we see where South Africa stands at the center of all of this. But as you say, I mean, we're sitting in a very difficult situation as a country. KwaZulu-Natal, I mean, you're putting the amount of years to how much we've got at the water catchments in KwaZulu-Natal, the Western Cape, Gauteng and Nelson Mandela Bay are so highly stressed. How are you managing this situation? And obviously it's something that can't be dealt with overnight, but in future, what are the plans in place?
The immediate thing is behavioral change of me and you. Yeah. In the agricultural sector, on domestic use, and in any other thing, including in sport. But also appreciating that water is a scarce resource. No single drop of water must be left as waste. It must be used to generate energy, to generate additional volumes of water. We need to look at innovation. It is not all about flushing for you to have a dignified sanitation solution. We'll see the exhibitions later today. President Zuma, together with the United Nations delegation, they'll be going around here showing how you can survive with a 1.5 liter cistern to do what you are now doing, you South Africans, with more than 6 liters of water, and yet to visit the toilet at least 5 times a day. Young and old, we all use the volume. The second one is to also show how through grey water, which is wastewater, you can actually generate new products for agriculture, for energy generation, as well as how water itself can generate energy through hydro. And the other thing that is important for all of us as South Africans is to go into the reality that we need different water mix. Boreholes, recycle what you use at home, save, close the leaks, have a responsive leadership that we have seen here in South Africa in the midst of a very tight economic condition. We've not had new money. We had to play around with all those resources and reprioritize. And the last thing is to appreciate that water knows no boundary. So we need peace amongst nations. We need peace in Lesotho for us to have a successful Lesotho project. We need collaboration and cooperation with Namibia so that we can have the Orange Sinku River, which is a shared basin between ourselves and the people of Namibia. We need prosperity together with the people of Zimbabwe so that we can be able to share the transboundary basin, which is our Limpopo. We're going as far as Zambezi to share. And other things that have to do with peace. We know other nations are already at each other's throat, and one of the primary contestations are around issues of water and access and control to water. One of the thematic sessions that we'll be having will have some of the Middle East countries sharing with all of us on issues of water and security, including coexistence. There will be, of course, issues coming from Jordan. There will be issues coming from Egypt. And there will also be issues thinking about the women and children of Palestine under these conditions. So it is something that is very important. What is happening here today is something that after this, the report that will be launched, President Jacob Zuma as a member of the high-level panel will be presenting in the United Nations General Assembly as a report of the world on the theme and the responsibilities that he has been given. We're also exploiting the fact that he's the chair of the African Union's Commission on Infrastructure, because the success, as I've said, we do not have a South African source of water. We're working, we're collaborating with our sister countries in SADC and in the continent. So the infrastructure development across Africa is also going to be incorporated into this, because later in the week there will be a meeting of African ministers who are now looking at how we then do a report or a section that then becomes a single report about Africa to the United Nations.
Well, that's the question that we pose to you, of course, today on social media. We want to find out from you, do you take this water crisis really serious? And what do we do with all our wastewater? Do we recycle it? Would you drink recycled water? Let's take a look at what's happening on social media. We start off with the hashtag Spur incident, where a heated argument broke out between two parents. Now, this has ruffled up everyone's feathers as Twitter even gets heated. Big Daddy Liberty says that the real hero was the skinny man in the striped shirt. He stepped in and acted like the adult those two shouting parents were refusing to be. There you have it there from Big Daddy Lashoko says, I don't know what caused the altercation, but he lost the argument the second he saw it fit to raise his hand to a woman. That's exactly it. Woman abuse, some say. Now, the man who threatened to hit the woman and shook their table has been banned from all the Spur restaurants nationwide, we understand now, coming that from Spur. Now, just to recap on Human Rights Day, there were many celebrations around the country yesterday. At the main event in the Eastern Cape, President Jacob Zuma said that to ensure radical transformation, South Africa needs liberated minds, as advocated by the late Black consciousness leader Steve Biko. Wreaths were laid at his tombstone to honor his legacy. Then, Thuli Madonsela said, a quest for a world where all lives matter equally is what Human Rights Day reminds us of. That's what the people of Sharpeville died for. That's Advocate Thuli Madonsela, former public protector. Moving on to today's matters, we mark hashtag World Water Day today. The United Nations says that around 80% of our water waste flows back into nature untreated. So, we are running that poll. And we're asking you, do you take the water crisis seriously? You can take a look at our poll right then. We can see where it is right now. Can we put up the poll? Well, we'll take a look at the poll a little bit later. And then finally in Zimbabwe, President Robert Mugabe has been criticized for not wearing a suit at the Africa Economic Platform in Mauritius yesterday. He instead opted for an island-style baggy white shirt. Oh, that's very cool, isn't it, for President Robert Mugabe? However, Zimbabwe radio station says that he was just sticking to the smart casual dress code suggested by the African Union Foundation invitation. So what's wrong with that, with the president on an island with a nice shirt, a baggy shirt, that is? Our picture of the day comes from Shrikar, and it's captioned hashtag World Water Day. Value the right thing. Hashtag Water Saving Week. Thousands have lived without love, not one without water. Beautiful picture there. Very apt. We have to save water all the time. Our comment of the day comes from Instituto Loscher. And says, on this day we celebrate hashtag World Water Day. Be grateful for having this precious liquid that helps sustain life in this world. And that's so true, isn't it? Because they say the next world war is going to be fought over water. Not other resources, water specifically. So what's your take on it? Do we have a crisis? I'll take a look at the comments just now. Let's take a look at what human rights events are taking place around the country. That was yesterday. We start off in Bloemfontein, where 6 major gold mining companies are expected to appeal against the High Court judgment that gave the go-ahead for class action by thousands of miners affected by silicosis. By the way, this is our diary for the day in terms of the court cases. Their application will be heard in the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein. The High Court in Johannesburg earlier ruled that miners who contracted silicosis and tuberculosis could sue the mining companies for damages. And then in Kimberley, the trial of the Northern Cape councillors' alleged killers is expected to resume today in the Northern Cape High Court. 6 men are facing double murder charges and are accused of killing the DA councillor, Johannes Baatjies, and his business partner, Shuping Nose. Baatjies and Nose were murdered execution style outside Daniel Scale 3 weeks after the 2016 local government elections. Those are some of the stories in the news. We'll keep you updated on the developments as we continue, but we'll take a short break and we'll be right back after that. The Water and Sanitation Department has warned that while Gauteng has benefited from the recent rains, other parts of South Africa remain in a drought situation and water should still be used sparingly. Now, we spoke to the Department of Water and Sanitation spokesperson, Sputnik Ratau, a few weeks ago.
I can safely say that the rains have improved our dam levels, especially in the north of the country, as you correctly say. That is why we can see that the average of the national dam levels is now way above 70%, going towards 75%. And yet we are aware that, especially those provinces that were particularly hardest hit by the drought, although some of them have come up quite nicely with their own dam levels provincially, but not all of them are at the same point.
Mm-hmm. Which dams benefited the most from the recent rainfalls?
I must say that according to our observations and according to what we have received from the different catchments and the ultimate outcome, the integrated Vaal River system, which has got about 14 dams serving it, is the one that has come out quite best out of all. And that integrated Vaal River system includes the Vaal Dam, which is quite critical for the continued performance of the economic hub of the country, which is Gauteng. The Vaal Dam is now over 100%, with some of the other dams, including Bloemhof, also that went above 100% last week, and we had to release some water in order to manage those levels.
Does that now pose perhaps a danger to communities living next to the river with the sluices now being open to let that water go?
There is a level of danger in the sense that if once we have opened, we have started the releases from both the Vaal Dam and Bloemhof, which are still continuing so far. Inclusive of that would be the additional rainfall that we are expecting as well. That would normally lift the levels along the Vaal River and the Orange River. And that is why we did put out our messages working with the National Disaster Management Center to people living along the Vaal River and the Orange River to make sure that they are aware of the dangers of the rising levels. But our main concern basically is around the town of Douglas in the Northern Cape, where it is the confluence of both the Orange and the Vaal rivers. And normally that is where we have most of the floods when that happens.
Mr. Rotau, how best can we utilize this overflow of water that is now being let go in order to make sure that we have contingencies in the longer run?
What it implies is that we have to look at ways of harnessing this water, not just now, but every time when it happens, and not just in the integrated Vaal River system, but everywhere where we could have a possibility of extra water being available in our systems. And that is why part of what has been a positive coming out of the drought that we've been experiencing is there has been the opportunity to do operations and maintenance as well as desilting of most of our dams in order to make sure that the capacity is enhanced in our dams and that we can be able to capture more water as time goes on. But that is not the only thing. We've also looked at the issue of raising some of our dam walls. When you look at the project to raise the Hazelmere dam wall, we're looking at the project to raise the Glen William dam wall and the Tsanin dam wall as well. This is in order to enhance the amount of water that we can be able to keep in our dams when we have this extra rains.
That sounds fantastic news. Now we know that the north of the country received adequate rain, but the south of the country, Western Cape, Northern Cape, they're still battling there. And I know this is going to be a layman's question, but can the overflow that we have now not be channeled in their direction in order to assist them?
Well, the difficulty is that, you know, the river systems at times talk to one another and at other times they don't. And in this instance, we do not have a system that can deliver water from the integrated Vaal River system, as an example, to systems in the Western Cape and so on, where we can be able to see how we can best utilize those kinds of operations is basically around the Free State, which we have done from time to time, the Northern Cape, as well as the Northwest where possible. But obviously, if we are able to deliver water to those other areas, it would mean that there would need to be new infrastructure that would have to come into play in order to deliver that kind of assistance. And at the moment, we do not have the kind of system that can deliver water from Gauteng or from the integrated Vaal River system specifically to the Western Cape.
Yeah. Will the department release an update on the dam levels anytime soon?
We do release updates on the dam levels, and today being Tuesday, we are going to release the latest ones that we do week on week, and we are hoping that we will continue to see a rise in our dam levels going towards the end of the rainy season at the end of April and looking at the dry winter season. But it is even more critical for us in terms of the Western Cape, because where we are and understanding the kind of issues that the Western Cape is dealing with, we are hoping that we could have early winter rains in the Western Cape as well as in the western part of the Northern Cape, so that sufficient relief can be experienced in those areas.
Your message for South Africans, especially here in the northern parts of the country, which might be thinking now that we've got adequate water, what is your message to them?
Our message, especially married to the fact that we will be gazetting, the lifting of water restrictions in Gauteng, is that let us all remember that South Africa continues to be a water scarce country, but even more critically, we are still in a drought situation. So let us not forget to continue practicing the little water conservation and water demand management efforts that have assisted us, together with the rains and together with the water restrictions, to be able to be where we are today.
That was Sputnik Rutau giving us an update last week. Now, we're asking you this morning, do you take the water crisis seriously? Yeah, that's on the poll. Let's take a look at what you have to say. So far, 166 votes in, Tsitsi Munare, 22 hours left. We have 78% saying yes, 13% saying, what crisis? And 9% are saying no. We don't take this water crisis seriously. Well, if you're living in the Western Cape, you must be very worried. But Berry says, yes, I am taking the water crisis very seriously. But our government and municipalities thinks that's a joke. Yeah. So says Berry. Lachasa says, the Water Summit, I really don't understand if this water crisis include ZB Makopong community, because they never had water at all, says Lachasa. Malibongwe says, why are we not recycling water in South Africa? Now, that's a very valid question. That's a question that we'll have to pose that can tell us a little bit more about that. Why are we not recycling? That's part of the discussion at the summit, talking about water and rain and heavenly substance. Let's talk to the weatherman. Tsitsi Munare is here, our meteorologist.
Hello there, welcome from the weather desk. In terms of rainfall here in South Africa, we're seeing some of it mostly towards the Eastern Cape province as well as some parts of KwaZulu-Natal. So do expect some light showers today and tomorrow. And then again, widespread showers for the southern parts of Angola, going into what's that western wing of Zambia and some part of Malawi, including the northern part, actually the southern part of Tanzania, as well as the northern part of Zimbabwe. Should expect a bit of rainfall, but quite hot and dry conditions are expected towards the southwestern regions, especially for the Western Cape province. Temperatures are going to be very high up, and it could also lead to possibility of veld fires. But this is the situation for tomorrow. You will remember that tomorrow is World Meteorological Day, so this is what you should expect towards Angola, up to 60% chance of rainfall, and it moves all the way towards the DRC. Again, light rainfall is expected towards much of the South African coastline, and there is also a bit of a cold front coming through from tomorrow, and it will go right across the Indian Ocean, leaving a bit of cooler temperatures towards the Western Cape and some rainy conditions towards the Eastern Cape province. This is what I was talking about earlier on, though, is the possibilities of veld fires because of these hot and dry conditions. You can see this whole area here is expecting some hot and dry conditions. Temperatures will be quite high up, about 35 for Springbok, around 40 for Vredendal, and a place such as Sutherland will be at 31 degrees, up into 37. Really, really hot temperatures along those parts, so please be extra careful. And then again, towards Durban, expect a maximum of 32. Quite a big day in Durban in terms of World Water Day, and it's also a very important day all across the world, so we all need to use the water sparingly. Pretoria is at a maximum of 30, 27 for Mbombela and for Polokwane. But then again, some partly cloudy skies leading to some temperatures dropping for Harare, maximum of 23 along those parts. Still quite hot for the northern parts of Madagascar. Mazanga reaches a maximum of 33. Back to mainland, Gaborone is at 29, Windhoek at 26. And again, widespread showers coming up for Libreville, Yaoundé, And temperatures do not cease to rise there in Banjul. It's now at 40 degrees, keeps on getting hotter and hotter. Lilongwe is at 27, Kampala 26, and Juba at 38 degrees. You might feel a bit of change just along the northern parts of Africa. Yes, most of the world is going through a seasonal change, so it is getting slightly warmer again now towards the northern parts. Still dry weather is expected for the Sahara Desert, for Mali, Mauritania, as well as the southern parts of Algeria. But along the northeastern side, Damascus at 21. Like I said, it is getting warmer. Baghdad at 13 degrees, 29 for Riyadh. So a bit of that winter period is coming to an end. Take a look at those. The northern temperatures are starting to rise steadily. They're 22s, 20s, where you used to see upper teens. And then Niamey, still very hot, 44 degrees. N'Djamena also sitting at 44 degrees. So those temperatures are quite relentless along those parts. That's it from the weather side. I'll be back again later. Stay tuned.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Media Monitor. I'm your host, Alicia Jali. What has been happening on the digital front?
To win the CAF Championship was a huge thing, and perhaps we ought to have celebrated him even more.
Absolutely.
73% of our schools, regardless whether they're in the township or they're in urban areas, if you go to those schools, you are guaranteed a matric pass.
It is the one thing that we haven't done well as a country. We have thrown money at it. I mean, if you ask for figures, you'll be told we're spending well in education.
90 billion.
But the performance of the system has not been good enough.
In 2013, there were similar disturbances at this very facility. And it would seem to me that this time around, the same issues that led to those disturbances are still prevalent.
This time around, funny enough, the 26, 27, 28 gangs ganged together and attacked officials, which is for us something that is very abnormal, and it has never happened.
Almost 23 years into our democracy, we are still confronted with a system that is as violent as in the dark days of apartheid.
The Department of Correctional Services has transformed from a prison system to a correctional system.
I've been arguing since time immemorial, and it doesn't help. When you argue with facts and you speak truth to power, justice, and authority, then you are seen as being arrogant and confrontational. I came here because I've been around the block many times, and Mr. Modise is a seasoned correctional officer. He knows exactly what is going in there. He knows exactly what needs to be done. And he knows for the fact that the Department of Correctional Services can't do it all by themselves.
People are dying in the Eastern Cape. They can't reach hospitals in emergency situations. By national standards, the Eastern Cape has the least developed road network. The round trip is almost 13 hours long and takes a heavy toll on Nolibele's already pain-ridden body. Nofundile's need to get to the hospital and back is bankrupting her family.
Siye sambizela i-ambulance. I-ambulance ayavuma ukuza ngaloo mini kwada kwasa. Ndingatsho ndithi udlale indima enkulu apha ekuswelekeni kasisi.
A top 5 rated horse racing event in the world, fashion is a highlight for those in attendance. All decked out in blue and white, the Lomorians Queen Plate is the premier event that kicked off everyone's social calendar.
That it was all part of my master plan to cast John Legend, but deprive him of his normal instrument and give that one to Ryan.
The House of Truth is not just a name. It is a religion. It is a lifestyle. It is a conviction that drives us.
what really excites me is how people have kept it very simple and also played with the theme, and how each person has interpreted it in their own way.
To stay updated with all the current entertainment news, tune into Trends every Saturday from 12 to 1.
It's 10:00 hours Central African time on this Wednesday, the 22nd of March. Yes, yesterday was Human Rights Day, but we're dealing with an issue that's related to that, Kendall. I'm Elvis Preslin.
I'm Kendall Makamate.
And today we're focusing on that issue, the woman that was seen in a heated altercation with a man at a Taximo Spur restaurant in the Glen shopping mall, who has apologized for her reaction to the conduct, or to his conduct in front of children. Now, Spur has since banned a man from its restaurants. It's got to do with a number of human rights issues here.
100%. I think it's so amazing that it happened on Human Rights Day, but it's actually quite apt because that's what we were focusing on yesterday.
So we're asking you the question, what are your thoughts on the Spur incident? And here are some of your thoughts. This one from Judas.
He says, yes, both parents were wrong. Children scuffles must not influence their parents to reach that fight stage. Judas.
This one from Christian Kleinant says, disgusting incident. It saddens me that race is tied to every conflict that includes different skins. Stick to the issue, said Christian. And what is the issue there? It's about Human Rights Day at the end, isn't
100%. And Tabalin Porter says, the behavior is wrong, but it's more disappointing to see Spur management is just standing and not calming the situation.
Malibongwe says, I personally think that has nothing to do with racism. Malibongwe continues, says, what happened at Spur was bad, but what worries me is the way people reacted in social media about what happened there. Now, these are some of your comments. You can keep them coming. We'll read them as we continue. But we're also conducting a poll, Kendall.
Yes, we are. We're conducting a poll on another issue that is of national importance. And it's on a water crisis that's actually happening worldwide. A United Nations report suggested that countries must reuse wastewater for human consumption. And that's why we're asking this particular question today.
Do you take our water crisis in this country seriously? Well, 78%, Kendall, are saying yes, they do. But there's 9% that says no, we don't take it serious. Those are probably the people that are staying up here in Gauteng because there's now ample water, but you still need to use it.
And there's 13%.
13%.
We're saying what water crisis?
What water crisis?
Wow.
It's pity.
Barry Martin comes in with, yes, I'm taking the water crisis very seriously, but our government and municipalities think it's a joke.
This one from Lhasa says, the World Water Summit, I really don't understand if this water crisis includes ZB Makopong community because they never had water at all. Now, that's shocking, isn't it?
Malibongwe says, why are we not recycling water in South Africa?
Valid question there from Malibongwe. So keep them coming. We'll read them as we continue. Now, the World Summit, obviously, the World Water Summit will take a look at that issue of recycling our water. Let's take a look at your headlines. Police are looking for a man, Kosanatim Simango, believed to be a key witness to the break-in at the Chief Justice's office in Midrand over the weekend. Former Constitutional Court Judge Albie Sachs says that he will defend the Constitution against any calls to change it. And Britain has introduced new aviation security measures which will ban laptops, tablet computers and large smartphones from cabin baggage on passenger flights from 6 countries in the Middle East. Those are all your headlines, but let's go to Kendall for your sports news as well as the news.
Thank you very much, Elvis. Good morning to you. This is what we've got planned for you for the sports today. Manuel Fumit and Enrique Avancini of Team Cannondale Factory Racing retain their position at the top of the general classification in the Cape Epic. And Neymar Jr.'s Brazil intensify their training ahead of their top-of-the-table Russia World Cup qualifier clash against Suarez-less Uruguay.
No matter what happens at this year's Masters, whether I can grab the jacket back or I miss the cut or I finish 30th, it'll be nice having this Masters go by.
And Jordan Spieth, still smarting from his 2016 US Masters final round collapse, cannot wait for this year's tournament to be over so that questions about last year can stop. Now, all this I'll have for you later on at about 10:40 when we get to the sports. Now, time for top of our news for today. Police are looking for a man, Nkosinathi Msimango, believed to be a key witness to the break-in at the Chief Justice's offices in Midrand over the weekend. The police say Msimango might be able to help with IT issues relating to the 15 computers that were stolen. The computers carried key information about the country's 250 judges. Police have also confirmed that they've arrested 3 suspects in connection with the burglary. The suspects will appear at the Mamelodi Regional Court today.
The arrest of 3 men in Mamelodi over the past few days. The team followed leads and information which resulted in operations being conducted on identified addresses in Mamelodi in search of the stolen equipment and the perpetrators of this crime. During the search of the identified premises, 3 men were arrested linked to the break-in at the offices of the Chief Justice to enable further investigation into the matter. Various items, including unlicensed firearms and fake identity documents, were seized during the operations. These items are considered evidential material which will be presented in court. We are also pleased to report that a vehicle which was possibly used as a getaway car during the commission of the crime has been seized by our members. Further interviewing of those who were arrested revealed the identity of a person with critical information required to solve the crime and the recovery of the stolen IT equipment. The South African Police Service is calling upon Mr. Nkosinathi Msimango, who was in the vicinity of Mamelodi on the day of the arrest and who has valuable information and insight into the commission of this crime, to approach the investigating officer and or report at the nearest police station to assist in this matter. The 3 suspects already in custody are expected to appear in court in Mamelodi today. They will face charges relating to other crimes they were possibly linked to, pending further investigation on this matter. As the South African Police Service, we record our confidence in the criminal justice system and in particular the courts of this country. We believe that the seriousness of this crime and the stature of the office of the Chief Justice will be considered in the further processing of the cases the apprehended people are linked to. The outcry and outrage of citizens over this incident is justified because brazen criminals targeted the office of the highest judicial officer in our country. However, our team's speedy response to the crime and the thorough investigation of this crime will not go unnoticed. It should be commended and recognized by all. The South African Police Service has noted with serious concern misplaced and or irresponsible utterances and allegations made undermining the mandate of the South African Police Service provided for in the Constitution of our country to prevent, combat and investigate crime. These statements are demoralizing to the hardworking members of the South African Police Service and are not assisting in the investigation process. We call upon responsible citizens and leaders from all walks of life to take up their rightful place in society and contribute positively and constructively in the fight against crime. Making baseless and unfounded allegations against any individual or leaders in government is not helpful during the course of investigation of crimes like that which manifested itself at the offices of the Chief Justice. Casting a shadow of doubt on the capability of the South African Police Service to investigate any crime committed is not assisting. Anyone with credible information relating to this crime or any other crime committed must feel free to approach the investigating officers and deposit such information to enable the resolution of such crimes. The significant breakthrough, together with the speedy resolution and or breakthroughs in cases of babies who appear in KwaZulu-Natal, as well as the Otia heist, bears testimony to the fact that the South African Police Service remains committed to prioritizing and thoroughly investigating serious crimes such as these in a bid to reduce the incidence of serious crime and violent crimes in our country. We have also sanctioned a security assessment for the purposes of advising on the enhancement of security at the offices of the criminal justice system, offices of the Chief Justice. We are extremely pleased that our members are working tirelessly to ensure that the perpetrators of this crime are brought to book. I am urging the people of South Africa to continue to work closely with our members to ensure that incidents which seeks to undermine our constitution must not have a place in our society. The leadership of the South African Police Service in all provinces continues to intensify their crime combating strategies and operations to ensure a safe and secure environment for all. The Back to Basics approach adopted by the South African Police Service, which encompasses the thorough investigation of all crimes committed, is yielding results.
President Jacob Zuma says government will continue to prioritize economic transformation, fighting crime and providing social assistance to the needy. He was speaking at the commemoration of the Human Rights Day in King Williamstown in the Eastern Cape yesterday.
We also recommit ourselves to advance fundamental human rights and the restoration of human dignity to the black people in particular, who were brutalized and dehumanized by the twin systems of colonialism and apartheid. The economy must be unbundled so that we can loosen white monopoly control and allow the entry of black people into the mainstream of the South African economy.
Meanwhile, former Constitutional Court Judge Albie Sachs says there's no need to amend the Constitution. This follows statements by President Jacob Zuma that the Constitution will probably have to change to facilitate and visit changes to land reform. Delivering a lecture at the Luthuli Museum in Grootville, north of Durban, Sachs said there were sufficient remedies in the current Constitution that could be used to bring about the change.
Activist and former Constitutional Court Judge Albie Sachs celebrated Human Rights Day at the Luthuli Museum. Reflecting on the contributions made by Chief Albert Luthuli and Oliver Tambo, he opened the Images of Human Rights exhibition based on the Bill of Rights enshrined in the Constitution.
We must use the rights the Constitution gives us, the remedies in the Constitution, to bring about the change, not change the Constitution, but change our society using the Constitution.
He also paid tribute to African countries who helped in the struggle for freedom and democracy.
You know, the bomb that was put in my car intended to kill me didn't kill me, it killed 2 Mozambicans. And all the countries in the neighborhood, Angola, suffered enormously, bitter civil war. South African troops were there. They were killing Angolans, they were killing Cubans, they were killing South African freedom fighters. So all the neighboring countries paid a huge price in blood and in the economy to enable us to achieve the democracy that we have now. And we must be eternally grateful for the sacrifices they made, which were huge for our freedom. And never forget, we were received as refugees.
The exhibition will run till the end of the year. Cassandra Zungu, SABC News, Grootville.
The Africa Economic Platform, an initiative of the African Union, is still underway in Port Louis, Mauritius. Tuesday's meeting focused on skills development in Africa. Speaking on the sidelines, Ghana's Trade and Industry Minister says President Nana Akufo-Addo's decision to appoint more than 100 cabinet ministers is to grow and develop the country's economy.
We'll achieve greater unity.
Last day of the conference, African governments came into the spotlight on their failure to prioritize the use of resources. A case in point, Ghanaian President Nana Akufo-Addo's appointment of a 110-member cabinet, despite Ghana's ailing economy. The country's trade minister defended the move.
The most important requirement for delivering the government's mandate is to make sure that you have the competent team that would prosecute the agenda of government. And this is what the president has done by constituting the current cabinet.
On focus, also on the last day of the meeting, youth unemployment and the skills gap that exists in Africa.
If you want to industrialize, if you want to bring about structural transformation, and if you want to really bring about double-digit economic growth that will create jobs, then you have to pay attention to the critical skills that are needed to propel that.
The African Economic Platform agreed to involve the private sector to build skills as well as create opportunities for the youth.
What is needed is impatience about status quo. We don't have many decades to make a difference in Africa. We need a coordinated effort for Africa to claim its space in the digital economy.
Least of all our people on the ground were expecting meaningful change in terms of our economic challenges.
The African Union Foundation converges in Mauritius next year to take stock of efforts towards Africa's economic growth. More leaders are expected to attend, as the meeting will coincide with the country's 50th independence anniversary. Sarah Kimani, SABC News, Mauritius.
Right now, Ghana's Trade and Industry Minister, Mr. Alan Kere-Martin, says the decision by President Nana Akufo-Addo to appoint more than 100 cabinet ministers was geared towards the country's push for economic growth. Now, the minister, who spoke to the SABC, said Ghana's new administration is determined to deliver on its electoral promises. He was speaking to our foreign editor, Sophie Mukwena, on the sidelines of the Africa Economic Platform.
Minister, the forum, Ghana has got a new administration. You came here as the Minister of Trade. How do you feel? Do you think there's progress?
Well, I believe that this being the first meeting of the African Economic Platform, that it shows a determination of the African Union Commission, the heads of states, the private sector and academia to forge a common position on some of the key issues underpinning Africa's development. The value that this platform brings to the African debate is that if you look at the normal structure for AU meetings, it doesn't always lend itself to multiple stakeholder participation. And I believe that this structure that brings different stakeholders at the highest level provides a new opportunity for constructive engagement on the development of the continent.
But the criticism is always the leaders on the continent. For example, right now you are also facing criticism that you have a big cabinet, 110 ministers. That money should go to development.
Well, I'm not going to comment on that, but there is an understanding within our own government that the most important requirement for delivering the government's mandate is to make sure that you have the competent team that would prosecute the agenda of government. And this is what the president has done by constituting the current cabinet. Yeah.
Are you optimistic about the future?
I'm very optimistic for a number of reasons. One is the clarity of vision. I believe that the basis for action, whether you're in the private sector or in government, is to have clear vision. Now, it is the vision that drives the agenda for implementation. And we both during our campaign and the first couple of months in office, have made it clear that our number one priority is to create jobs. And all the things that we've been talking about is designed to make sure that we actualize that objective.
In other news, Britain has joined the United States in imposing restrictions on carry-on electronic devices on planes coming from certain airports in Muslim-majority countries in the Middle East and North Africa. The announcement comes in response to unspecified security threats. The United States Department of Homeland Security says passengers traveling from a specific list of airports could not bring into the main cabin devices larger than a mobile phone, such as tablets, portable DVD players, laptops and cameras. Instead, such items must be checked in baggage. Civil liberty groups have raised concerns that US President Donald Trump was seeking another limit on movement after a travel ban from Muslim-majority countries was challenged in the courts. The measures are to be implemented as from this weekend. And then on that note, that's where we bring Elvis back in. Elvis?
Thank you, Kendall, and we bring it back home. Warring taxi organizations in Mthatha in the Eastern Cape have agreed to cease all hostilities. The Ngebo and the Border Alliance Association smoked the peace pipe this week. This after the Transport Department closed 2 ranks.
Taxi ranks shut down and under police watch. Operations on the R61 suspended for 6 weeks. A huge blow to the industry in the region. Feuding organizations forced to bury the hatchet, at least for now.
We are not quite comfortable with that resolution that has been taken by the government around this issue. We understand why they took that decision. It was because of the situation where innocent people were dying, and they had no other option. They had to take drastic measures. But at the same time, being people who are committed, being people who are operating legally, we had that we are destroying our industry. We had a feeling that we should quickly meet and come up with an everlasting solution.
We are going to try by our best to suspend any form of taxi violence permanently, because the taxi violence is costing the lives of innocent people, is costing our families, is costing the industry. We are going to work hand in hand now as UNCEDO with Border Alliance to come to a better solution.
The clashes came at a high price. Minibus taxis were torched, and since March last year, 30 people were killed. Scores sustained injuries.
I'm working at Lusikisiki, so every weekend I do use taxis because I'm Mthatha, it's my home, then back there it's work. So every weekend I travel. 17 taxi operators, including owners and drivers, remain in custody. They face charges of public violence, illegal possession of dangerous weapons, assault and malicious damage to property. It's hoped the 2 taxi organizations honor their undertaking. Fundiswa Mhlekude, SABC News, Mthatha.
Now, while taxi associations are fighting over routes, taxi owners can now run their taxi businesses electronically through an application on their cell phones. It's called Amatekis. The app was launched in Durban and allows owners to electronically keep track of the number of loads and passengers at any time of the day, giving them an idea of how much to cash in at the end of each business day. More exciting for the taxi bosses is that the app allows them to know exactly how much the driver has made and an accurate information of the operations at their taxi ranks. In the past, the taxi drivers would just cash up without any proof of how much was made. Joining us now in our Durban studios is the founder of Amatekis, Brian Mbambo. A very good morning to you, Brian, and welcome. Brian, can you hear me?
Morning. Yes, wonderful. I can hear you, Elvis. Morning.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Tell us about this particular app, Amatekis, and how did it come about?
The Amatekis app, we started it in 2015 when we were working with taxi associations on another program, and we saw that there is a need that the owners are actually desperate to know actually how much money their taxis make during the day. And we came up with my partner, we came up with the idea of the Amatekisi app. Yeah.
Now, the app is supposed to formalize the taxi industry and improve the way the taxis operate. How so? Please explain the process for us and how will it help the taxi bosses as well as the taxi operators?
Okay, basically the app works is used by rank managers. So when the taxi comes in the rank managers, we supply them with also tablets, and the rank manager will check in the taxi that is first on the queue, and the taxi that has been checked in, it will move to the checkout screen. So when the time comes for the taxi to load passengers, the owners will, the rank manager will just click one button, which is check out, and then the app will save the information of how many passengers that are in that taxi and multiply it with the rate, which is the fare of that route. So. And then at the end of the day, once the operation has finished, and then we will send an SMS to the owner of how much the taxi has made during the day. Also, the owner can also track during the day how much money it has made. Let's say 1 o'clock during the day, you want to find out how much money your taxi has made. Then there is a USSD platform that we also created for owners to actually check how much money during the day that the taxi has at that point in time.
That sounds absolutely fantastic for the owners, of course, because now they can sleep better. But tell us about the drivers. How have the drivers accepted this entire app as well as the rank operators?
Well, the rank operators, they actually embrace the product, because it makes their work much more easier, and there is less fighting, because the app also records the time the taxi has been checked in. So it is much more easier for them. But the taxi drivers, when we start at a specific route, for instance, in a week's period, there will be definitely those negative talks and that this won't work and so forth and so forth. But after 2 weeks or so, they would have got used to it, and they will embrace also the app.
Now, we've seen taxi drivers normally have a negative impact to technology. I remembered when they wanted to introduce a card system in the taxis, they rejected the idea outright. Is there a sense that there's some sort of an acceptance within the taxi industry?
Look, there is acceptance within the taxi industry, more especially the owners, because this benefits directly the owners. And going forward, we are elevating, we are going to be launching the next level of the Amatekisi app, I think, before the end of this year, because we are working on taking it to another level, and hopefully that also is going to come with its own dynamics that is going to be beneficial to the drivers also. Because there are a couple of issues that we're experiencing currently.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've launched it in Durban. Are you going to roll it out nationally throughout the country?
Yes, that's what we're hoping for. If we can also get assistance maybe from government departments, that's what we're also hoping for, to launch it nationwide, because there are a lot of spin-offs that this app has. Like, for instance, it gives the exact amount of passengers that a taxi, that the route commutes during the day or during the business day. So there are spin-offs, and we are hoping to roll it out nationwide.
So it seems like the owners are smiling all the way to the bank, but it's the lower ranks that's probably going to have a problem. But if you look at moving forward, Brian, is there a chance perhaps that the app can also assist with what we've just seen in the previous package, where we see the taxi associations complaining about taxi drivers taking on illegal routes as well as operators? Can the Amatekis app perhaps help with this particular contentious issue?
Yes, definitely. With the new Amatekis app that we're launching on this year, it will definitely have the GPS system that will also assist with regards to tracking where the taxi is, and at the same time calculate the number of passengers inside the taxi. Yes, taxi violence is one of our biggest challenges as also a business. When they fight, it also, because we have also lost, I think, about 2 or 3 clients due to taxi violence. So we are trying to also accommodate all the issues that the taxi industry is facing and try to mitigate and assist them with regards to finding solutions and moving this business forward, because it is quite a huge business and it is all black-owned, and we are trying to move to that direction where they can work together and actually understand each other and find amicable solutions as an industry.
If people are interested in the project and in the app, where do they get the information from?
Yeah, we are on Facebook, Amatekisi app. We're also on, our website is www.amatekisiapp.co.za, and also the most quickest way is to just give us a call. My number is 078-693-7142. 078-693-7142. We also do trainings, because in other associations you'll find that rank managers are not familiar with using the internet and so forth. So we also do the training, and what we do is we try to also empower our black brothers to actually understand the internet and know what to do when we're using our devices.
Brian, I thank you so much for your time and good luck with the project.
Thank you so much, Elvis.
That was founder of Amatekis, Brian Mbambo. Fantastic app for taxis. Well, you can formalize the taxi industry through that. Well, we'll take a break and we'll be right back after that.
With the vast experience SABC News have, we are able to gather news and when it happens locally and abroad.
Inflation will be lower this year. Food price inflation, more specifically, could decline.
Current chairperson Dr. Nkosazana Lamini Zuma is not vying for a second term. 5 candidates are eyeing her seat.
The idea of having more countries seems specifically tailored to appeal to the African, Asian and Caribbean confederations who have been underrepresented at World Cups.
Ronaldo lifted the UEFA Champions League before captaining his country to a first international trophy at Euro 2016.
To be informed all the time, stay tuned to News Today, Monday to Friday at 3 p.m.
If you asked the British how they felt about being the biggest cider drinkers in the world, they'd say something like this. Yes. Well, we don't know about you, but that sounds like a challenge. Challenge accepted.
Get a 6-pack of Savannah Dry or Light Handies for only $56.99 from Tops at Spar.
President Jacob Zuma will officially launch the World Water Day Summit and the Expo at the Durban International Convention Center today. The United Nations estimates that water scarcity affects more than 40% of the global population. The 3-day meeting is being hosted by the Department of Water and Sanitation, the KwaZulu-Natal government, as well as the United Nations Water Programme. Our SABC reporter Blaine Herman is at the conference.
Once again, the world has converged on the port city of Durban, and this time it's for World Water Day. Now, this year's theme is water and sanitation are indeed human rights. And I guess it's fitting considering that South Africans are still celebrating Human Rights Month this month. Now, there's also a very important sub-theme, which is wastewater, the untapped resource. And all these themes are intended to highlight the plight of the global population still suffering from water and sanitation-related issues. Let's further this conversation, get more insight now. The KZN Corporate of Governance and Traditional Affairs MEC Nomusadube Ncube joins me now live. Thank you very much indeed for your time, MEC. Firstly, a conference, a summit like this, held here in KwaZulu-Natal, how significant is it?
Well, it is very significant for us because it comes in at the time when we are battling from the drought that we have been experiencing for quite a few years now, prolonged drought, where municipalities had to put a lot of restrictions on water, where we've had to look at various ways of conserving water, of reclaiming water, but also of reusing some of the water, but also looking at the international practices around the issues of water conservation, technology that is available, but also looking at various speakers that are going to be speaking here, sharing with us. It also comes in at the time where we are very actively participating in the climate group on the sustainable development. Since the COP17 here in South Africa, we have been constantly participating, and this was a theme that was given to us as Africa to say, because Africa has been experiencing this extreme weather patterns, particularly the droughts in the subcontinent of Africa, we need to look at the theme of water and sanitation to see how we can share experiences with the rest of the world.
Currently, the situation is globally about 2 billion people are affected by water stress, and this is likely to rise in the coming decades due to increased demand on our water supplies, as well as the increasing effects of climate change. KZN had to deal with this drought, this extended dry spell. What lessons have you learned, and what lessons can you share in terms of the rest of the country?
Well, we have a lot of lessons to share with the rest of the country. Firstly, the realization that we do not have a lot of water as we thought we had. Secondly, the fact that we need to reuse water. Thirdly, the fact that we need to conserve water because we've always had a lot of rains in the coast as we're in the coastal part of the country, but a lot of this water goes to the big rivers, that is the sea, and we're not able to reclaim the water that we lost from the sea. So we had to look at how do we ensure that we channel some of this water for conservation, but also we store some of this water, but also we've had to learn as to how we can raise some of the dam walls so that we have more storages when we have more water. But the realization as well that we do not get as much rains every year as we used to get. So what do we then do? It means less and less. Every year we experience less and less of rains. That means we need to think quickly and we need to see how else we're going to get water, because of course there's no substitute for water. And understanding that we've had to have restrictions, we had to get a lot of people involved, traditional leadership involved, people in the rural areas involved, because the rivers have got dried up, the animals were suffering, agriculture is suffering. As you know, that KwaZulu-Natal is relying more on agriculture. We had to really think on our feet, but we also have to look at technology that is available to say what else are we going to do in order for us to survive.
Thinking on your feet, thinking outside the box is key, isn't it? Talk to us about the importance of wastewater and the significance of it as a resource.
Well, it is very important for us. It had to be that we never thought in our entire lives that we could ever think about reusing the green water, what we call the green water. But we've got to think about how we can use that green water for some of the industries, because some of the industries do not need to use drinkable water for some of the things they're using. For agriculture in particular, we do not need to use, drinkable water. And for other industries, they do not need drinkable water. Even from some of our sanitation systems, we've got to think about how do we ensure that our sanitation systems do not use drinkable water. So we've had to introduce, even in new housing developments, some technology that would really now begin to reuse water instead of using drinkable water for flushing and for other things that we could be using blue water or green water for. So these are all the things that we've got to bring in. But we're excited as KwaZulu-Natal as well that we've got a very cooperative national government in our minister. She's a really good champion. She's given us a lot of support. She's given us also, a lot of lessons coming from different areas, but we've also had to take a lead to say we have so much challenges in the country. As well as KwaZulu-Natal, we cannot fold our hands and wait for the national. We've got to play our part. We've got to get our communities involved. A lot of communities have got to be hit with large fines for, not conserving enough water as we are supposed to be doing, for filling your pools, for washing your cars, for, not conserving water. We've got to deal with a lot of fines in terms of charging those people. And those are a lot of lessons that we've had to learn as KwaZulu-Natal, but also we're now able to share those with the rest of the country.
On the wastewater issue, we can get it to a standard where it can be drinking water, isn't it?
Of course we can. We're doing it in the northern parts of KwaZulu-Natal already, where we are now able to use some of the green water. It's got to be cleaned, and we're able to drink it. And I've drank it myself, and a lot of people have been drinking it for years as well. Which is something that we never thought about, in our entire history and in our lifetime, but it's happening.
Yeah, exactly. So from toilet to tap, I know I'm being terribly reductive, but there's a whole lot of processes to clean it up. But is that the future? Is that where we're heading to?
We have to be looking at that, because think of it. We are flushing this water and we're throwing it away instead of keeping it somewhere, cleaning it, reusing it for something. That's why we're talking about reusing, reclaiming the water, but also conserving that water. So if you've got to look at all these things, you look at it holistically. You don't look at like flushing and drinking, but you look at how do we recycle, how do we reuse? Because when we talk about reusing, we also talk about rainwater. How do we reuse rainwater? How do we clean, different sources of water? How do you use different technologies that are available? Because that's one area where we've never tapped on. There's a huge amount of technology available in the world, which is not very expensive. But even in the country, we've looked at what is Eastern Cape doing, what kind of technology is available in the Western Cape, in the Northern Cape. There's a lot of other technologies that are available. But as I say, because we've never had such a problem, we've always thought we had enough water, we always thought we have enough dams, we have enough rivers, and come to realize that those rivers got dry. Those dams are getting drier. What do we do? Let's look at what else we can do. But also we've got a big river, the sea. We've had to look at that. We have a new, desalination plant that is going to be commissioned in a few months to time. The minister and the president will be opening it first time in KwaZulu-Natal. We've been to it. The water is perfect. To think that for the first time we're even going to be reclaiming some of the water from the sea. That really shows the amount of progress that we are making. We know in the south coast of KwaZulu-Natal as well, we've been experiencing a lot of shortage of water there. We're again looking at the desalination plant there, as we have one in the north now. Again in the north, we have the green waters recycling that we're doing. So there's a lot of work that we are doing in the country, but also as a province, to meet our demands, because the reality is that the demand of water is not enough what we have available.
Let's just wrap it up. Just finally, with regards to the Water Expo and Summit, it's happening till Friday. I know chief among the activities will be the global launch of the World Water Development Report 2017. Apart from that, what else can we expect, especially for today?
Well, we can expect, of course, the launch of that report by the president himself, who's also the chair. We're very excited about that. We can expect that there's going to be a lot of international speakers that are going to be sharing the platform with us, sharing a lot of knowledge and expertise, technology, of course, that we're also looking at, but also we're looking at local experiences that we're going to be talking about as a country, but also as a province. What has been our experiences? What have been lessons that have been learned? Most chief amongst the lessons is the intergovernmental relations, the importance of working together. together. The importance of all stakeholders, community participation at the very most important, because without the community participation, without communities realizing that we need to work together here if we are to have water for the next season. As we are reeling from this prolonged drought, we always think about the next season. What do? The rains, we're not going to be having rains now. So how much water do we have? Our dams, of course, we're lucky this time around that we're not like last year. We're better off this time, but it doesn't mean we're out of the woods. So it means we need to continue with the practice. We need to continue with the culture of reuse, recycling, reclaiming, but also ensuring that really our practices and our attitudes are the ones that understand that water is another resource that is endless. We are short of water, and it's still going to be for a while. So we need to be water wise. We need to ensure that we use water, in a way that realizes this is a very precious resource and there's no substitute for it.
SABC, thank you very much indeed for your time. Great having you on the program. There you go. Be water-wise. That's the advice from the KZN MEC for Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. That's how we wrap things up from Durban. It's back to Johannesburg.
Thank you, Blaine Herman, at the summit there. So, of course, we're asking a question on the poll in terms of the water crisis. Do you take it seriously? Now, the National Water Week is an awareness week campaign by which it serves as a powerful campaign mechanism to reiterate the value of water, the need for sustainable management of the scarce resource, and the role that water plays in eradicating poverty and underdevelopment in South Africa. Now, for more on this, we spoke to Peter Townsend, the senior engineer at Parsons Brinkerhoff Structures Africa.
Right, the Water Week is probably one of the most important awareness weeks in our calendar, brought more into focus now because of the current drought that we've just experienced in the Gauteng region. I see water restrictions have just been lifted by the Minister. However, the rest of the country, and particularly the Western Cape and even the Eastern Cape, are in a severe grips of a drought still. Mm-hmm. So it's an awareness campaign which all need to participate in. Normally the Department of Water Affairs and Sanitation take the initiative here, but I believe that this is a countrywide problem, and we all different need to take in the initiative to make it an awareness in schools, in institutions, and so on. And the media plays a huge role in this awareness campaign.
What sort of strategies or implementation are you using to spread that awareness?
Well, within a corporate environment, nearly all the corporates will stress the need for water to the employees. I'm recommended that even in our email signatures that we stress the need for water. Schools in particular could play a big role. They could arrange projects, essays, etc. on water. So it's a countrywide initiative, and there's room for everybody to play in it.
Why is water so important, especially from a social and economic perspective and development?
Well, when you break it down to its basic lowest common denominator in terms of commodities, water is the source of life. It even is more important than food. And so it's vital for our well-being. But certainly in developing populations, it increases their standard of living. It gives them more time to do other things, not go and fetch water from 3 kilometers away in a wheelbarrow with 20-litre bottles. It also eradicates disease, waterborne diseases. So it's vital to the economy. In fact, water is the Achilles heel of South Africa's economy. It's vital to our economy.
What consequences do we face as a country if we fail to adequately address and even manage the reality of water shortages in the country? We've seen it now coming through this drought already.
Well, the consequences can be dire and severe. We've seen service delivery protests, but they would almost pale into insignificance to the sort of political and social upheaval that will come about due to lack of water. It's vital to people. So we can't avoid the responsibility for it. Dare I even mention that it might be even more catastrophic than not paying our social grants by SASA.
Now, what is being done both by the public sector as well as the industry to better manage our water resources that we currently have? When we spoke to the Department of Water Affairs a couple of weeks ago, they indicated that because of the adequate water that we have right now in our dams, they're even thinking of rebuilding the walls or putting up the walls a little bit higher to contain the excess water that we would have in times like these when we have so much rain.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. You know, we have about 5,000 registered dams in this country, built mostly in the 1960s to 1990s. So they're getting old and they need maintenance. But certainly the only way to increase capacity is to raise the walls to increase that capacity. We are losing capacity in our dams due to sediment. We also lose it from high evaporation rates due to these excessive hot weather that we've experienced. But industry has looked at itself, and we're looking at recycling water like grey water from showers, baths, wash-hand basins, etc. And we need to look at rain harvesting, all these sort of initiatives that are necessary for us to take the pressure off this purified water that we get from rainwater.
Because we use pure water to flush our toilets.
We do. And unfortunately, we also lose a lot of that pure water through leaks, aging infrastructure, and therefore it's important for the public and authorities to report leaks as soon as they see them. Also in the households, leaking toilets, dripping taps, all those things need to be fixed up.
Could this be a national program where governments step in and assist households to actually harvest the rainwater that we had so far in Gauteng, for instance, and even countrywide, where they can be subsidized in order to contain and make sure that people have excess water?
It's very possible, and it would be a great initiative for government to do that, particularly in schools and community halls, and something where there is a bigger roofed area and you can have rainwater tanks. No, it's a good initiative, but I think the initiative has to start with the owners to request such information, such facilities.
Well, some would argue that the cost for doing that is quite expensive, you know, in terms of putting up those rainwater tanks. So, and that's why I'm asking, is there perhaps an indication that government would subsidize households?
I think that it certainly is worth looking at. A rainwater tank in the order of 2,000 to 5,000 litres will cost in the order of 3,000 to 4,000 rand. It's a once-off cost, and therefore you have the benefit of that for the next 20 years.
Welcome back. Now, right now, we've just got news that the Minister Nomvulani Mokonyane is at the podium in Durban at the International Water Summit. She's about to speak. In fact, she has started to speak, and that's exactly why we're going there right now.
In all those areas where you will be participating, any other new development will be informed by ushers, and any other assistance you need, the conference team, the organizing team would always be there to come and give the necessary support. We are going to rise and sing the national anthem of the Republic of South Africa, and thereafter we will then commence with the program for the day, which would actually be a program that involves His Excellency President Jacob Zuma, the Premier of the province of KwaZulu-Natal, the remarks that will be made by the high-level representatives, Mr. Joachim Halin, Mr. Gitachu Ngida. Mr. Joachim Halin is the Vice Chair of the UN Water. Mr. Ngida is the Deputy Director General of UNESCO. Professor Patrick Vergoegen. In South Africa, we've got Viljoen. Here it's Verkoejen, if I'm correct. And then we'll have Dr. Mohamed Abdel Atti, the Minister of Water, Resource and Irrigation from Egypt, and the Vice President of AMCAO. Those are the participants who will then take us through, and thereafter we'll then have a panel that will be moderated by Professor Stefan Ollenbroek. Post that, that's when then we will have a break where we'll then be going for tea and going to our different commissions, and the President, together with the entourage, will then go for the media advisor. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the President of the Republic of South Africa in a short period of time. I'm looking at the body language of somebody who's really taking a stroll when he's supposed to be actually sprinting. Okay. Yes, we are aware that even on Thursday when he was responding in Parliament, we're told that he's off sick. So we're trying to attend to that situation, but he is here. So, as I've said, to keep you busy, we are also going to have two cultural items that are also going to be performed by the cultural groups from here in KwaZulu-Natal. Later in the day, in the evening, we would also have an awards ceremony that would be a ceremony to recognize young smart minds. There are 4 prizes. It will be done together with our colleagues from the Open Governance Group. They will be the ones who will be working together with us. It's dark where they said I must check. And the lady is dressed in black, so I can't see her, and she's black as well. Oh, I can see the hands. At least if it was me, it would have been a better black complexion, isn't it? Okay. We're ready. Yes, thank you very much. I'm reminded that there is translation in French. Those who will need a translation, there is going to be that translation because that has been the only request from those who have registered. You shouldn't have chased our kids away. Everybody at the corner is raising a hand, and the person who said I must look at her, she's not doing anything. Now she's doing it. Ladies and gentlemen, may we please all rise and welcome the Premier of the province of KwaZulu-Natal, His Excellency Premier Willis Mchunu. Welcome, Premier. Let's please be seated. I can bet you, we all know the president is a male, so I'm the only female here. So it's my day, I'm in charge of all these men. May we all rise and welcome His Excellency, the President of the Republic of South Africa. His Excellency, the President of the Republic of South Africa, who is also a member of the 12-member high-level panel on water for the United Nations, President Jacob Gedleyihlekisa Zuma, accompanied by Madame Zuma, the First Lady. Thank you very much. Let's remain standing. Dear colleagues, those of us who are wearing hats and are male, please take it off. The young man there, thank you very much, my baby. And I don't think there is a best picture of anyone singing an anthem. We want to invite our photographers as well. Please join us in singing our national anthem. So if you could move a bit, let's allow them for a change. They are cooperating. We love you so much. Join us in singing the national anthem. We do have a recording that is going to lead us with singing the South African national anthem. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, allow me once more to acknowledge the following representatives amongst us: His Excellency, the President of the Republic of South Africa and a member of the 12-member high panel of the United Nations panel that is focusing on water, on behalf of the UN Secretary, Mr. Joachim Halin, the Vice Chair of the UN Water, the Deputy Director General of UNESCO, Mr. Getashu Enigda, Professor Patrick Verkoeyen from the World Bank, Dr. Mohamed Abdel Eti, Minister of Water Resources and Irrigation from Egypt, the Vice President of AMCAO, Mr. Tony Stelter, representative of the High-Level Panel for Water Shapers from Australia, Mr. Oswald Mulenga Chanda from the African Development Bank, Mr. Joachim Halin, I'm repeating you, I don't know for what, but it's UN Water Day today, it's okay. Mr. Martin Ginster, Head of Water, Waste, Land and Biodiversity at SASOL and Working Group Chair of the Strategic Water Partnership Network, Mr. Michael Sheldrick of Global Citizens, South African ministers, deputy ministers, the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal and MECs present, councillors, traditional leaders, representatives of the various sectors of the water sector, senior managers who are here, South African representatives of civil society, ladies and gentlemen. It is my singular honor and pleasure to welcome all our honored guests and participants here today from all over the world to our beautiful and sunny South Africa to celebrate World Water Day, which is a significant day in the water calendar. We also acknowledge your presence here to also join us and witness the launch of the 2017 World Water Development Report, which is a report with recommendations that will play an important role to avert the threatening global water crisis, and further be part of the declaratory statement by our President, His Excellency President Jacob Zuma, in his capacity as member of the High-Level Panel on Water, to encourage member states to implement Goal 6 on water and sanitation. Allow me to quote Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, who wisely said, and I quote, "A goal without a plan is just a wish," close quote. So in an effort to implement the endorsed 2030 development agenda, I have only one thought that I wish to leave with you as global water warriors. Don't let anyone ever dull your sparkle. If we as global leaders and advocates are to invest in our future, never allow anyone ever to dull your sparkle. It therefore gives me an honor, as we proceed with our program, to invite Mr. Thembinkosi Willis Mchunu, the current and 7th Premier of the province of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa since May 2016. He has been the MEC, the member of the Executive Council, which is the provincial government for the Department of Transport, Community Safety and Liaison in KwaZulu-Natal. He's a serving member of the African National Congress and the Deputy Chairperson of the African National Congress here in this province, and the former Chairperson of the South African Communist Party here in KwaZulu-Natal, and is a member of the South African Communist Party. He has been involved in the development agenda of the people of KwaZulu-Natal. I hereby then call on His Excellency the Premier, Mr. Thembinkosi, for the first time I know this name, Thembinkosi Willis Mchunu. A big round of applause.
Thank you very much, Program Director, Minister Nomvula Mamkize Mukonyane, our Minister of Water and Sanitation in the Republic of South Africa. Your Excellency, Honorable President of the Republic of South Africa, Mr. Zuma, honored guests, Mr. Joachim Halim, Vice Chair of UN Water, Mr. Getashu Enigda, Deputy DG of UNESCO, Professor Patrick Verkoeyen of the World Bank, Mr. Kassim Lwenge, Minister of Water and Irrigation, United Republic of Tanzania, African Ministers' Council on Water, President, His Excellency Mr. Mwau Kibaki, UNESCO Special Envoy to the United Nations on Water, who is also the former state president of the Republic of Kenya, His Excellency Prieto Giovanni Donico, his ambassador and permanent representative of Italy to South Africa, Professor Stephen Uhlenbrook, who is coordinator and director of United Nations World Water Assessment Program, all other honored guests, members of the media present, a very warm welcome and a very good morning to all of you distinguished guests. It's a special honor on behalf of the people of KwaZulu-Natal and government in this province to welcome you. We are fully aware that many of you have traveled a great distance to be here in the city of Durban with us. The people of this province are very excited that you are here, and they will do everything to make you feel home away from home. Honored guests, this is the land of the revered Madiba. He is not only our first president in a democratic South Africa, but he is known as a world icon. And he is also known to have inspired multitudes of people inside and outside our borders. As we welcome you to this KwaZulu-Natal, we hope you are not surprised that we are a kingdom that exists within a republic. It is one of the oldest kingdoms of the Zulu people, fashioned by its founder and military genius, our King Shaka, over centuries ago, and has survived many onslaughts, but importantly, the onslaught of colonialism. It is a home of our proud history and heritage as the people of South Africa. It is a home of pride as we fought against dispossession. We defeated the top generals of the British military forces, one of the unchallengeable might at the time, having put an end as well to the Napoleonic dynasty, which was one of the best known in European history. To this history adds the history of Mahatma Gandhi, where the doctrine of Satyagraha was originated and refined before it was employed successfully to attain the liberation of India and influence the peaceful resistance of Martin Luther King Jr. and the American Civil Rights Movement. Many sites of historic importance reside in this province, with the best of the wildlife, the Big Five, plethora of fauna and flora. KwaZulu-Natal has everything a tourist may wish for, starting from our warm beaches, in which the pleasant weather ensures that bathing can be pleasant in any part of the day and any night time of the year round. For you, the hikers who may be present amongst you or you have left back home, we provide the best in the Drakensberg, highest range of the mountains with the footprint of prehistoric paints of the San and Khoi people. This and the St. Lucia wetlands have given this province 2 World Heritage sites. I can only leave you to wander around and sample the warmth and the smiles of the friendly people of this province. I am sure you will also find time to experience the diversity of our cultures, our cuisine, our religion, and our languages, all that which makes us known as the Rainbow Nation. Excellencies, we are greatly privileged to have been accorded this opportunity to host the United Nations World Water Day Summit and Expo. Our province has over time positioned itself as the home of important venues for high-profile national and international events, that are hosted by our country, South Africa. Our Nkosi Albert Iltuli International Convention Center, this one in which this conference is held, in the past hosted the inaugural and founding conferences of the formation of the African Union, and this ICC is named after the first African recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize, Nkosi Albert Mvumbi Iltuli. Many other conferences of note, such as the World Economic Forum, Non-Aligned Movement Summit, the largest AIDS international conference in year 2000, and the 2016 Commonwealth Conference. For us, BRICS and COP17 have also been successfully hosted in this city. In May this year, we will again host the World Economic Forum, bringing together locals in leaders in economic development, government, academia, and civil society. It is not surprising that already there is a great interest from the international community to us here in the city of Durban. We highlight this to contextualize the importance we attach in portraying this province as an important site for exchange of ideas and finding solutions to problems of different parts of the globe. The province is being developed as a center of cultural and sporting excellence. Every year, we welcome many guests and delegates from different parts of the globe. We look forward to welcoming you back here after this summit as tourists. Please, as you consider coming back, consider bringing back your families, your friends, to enjoy the beauty of this province. Also to extend an invitation on our behalf to CEOs of your companies. They can come, explore opportunities of business here in our province. And I conclude, Program Director, by a quotation that somebody once said, and I quote, "In the future, the wars won't be fought on the availability of oil and mineral resources, but it will be fought on the availability of water." I close quote. Ladies and gentlemen, we look forward to your deliberations. We acknowledge your presence and all other key role players in water management. We want to learn best practice on how to ensure adequate provision of water. Welcome. As we say in isiZulu, siyanamukela. I thank you.
Another round of applause to the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal. Thank you very much, Honorable Premier. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have another speaker whose name is Joachim Hallin, the Vice Chair of the UN Water, who is a water resource and international development professional, formerly employed by the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm, the Swedish Meteorological and Hydrological Institute, and the consulting firm Sweco AB in Sweden. He has vast experience in research and development, consultancy and business development in water management in developing countries. He has managed, designed, and implemented projects in Africa, in Asia, in Europe, and in Latin America. He joined the UNDP in New York in 2004 as Senior Water Resource Advisor with the Bureau for Development Policy. As UNDP's representative in UN Water, he had key roles the past years in relation to monitoring and reporting national progress on water resources management, developing recommendations for the UN Water on how to support water actions at the country level, and most recently, to lead joint UN input in support of the Agenda 2030 process, currently mainly related to the development of an indicator and reporting framework for the SDG 6, led by the EIAG SDG group. He was recently elected to serve as Vice Chair of the UN for 2 years, a role which he brings with him to his new position as Chief Freshwater Ecosystems Unit of the UNEP. May I invite Mr. Halin to the podium.
Thank you very much. That was quite some introduction. Your Excellency, President Zuma, Premier, Ministers, Excellencies, all distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, dear friends. I'm very honored to be here today on behalf of our UN Water Chair, Mr. Guy Ryder, and I'd like to warmly thank the government of the Republic of South Africa for welcoming us to your country, and for the President for honoring us with your attendance. I'd also like to thank the Department of Water and Sanitation for organizing this event, and my colleagues in UN Water for coordinating this year's World Water Day. This is the pivotal global event that we're undertaking here in South Africa, but it's part of a larger campaign. And the celebration today are testimonies to your hard work and devotion. I'd like to especially thank UNESCO and its World Water Assessment Program. You've been very involved in organizing this event, but you've also coordinated UN Water's World Water Development Report that we always launch on World Water Day. It's a commitment to always provide the most up-to-date information as possible. And it provides, you could say, a technical backdrop to the theme of the World Water Day that we carry through the year. Ladies and gentlemen, let us not forget why we do this every year. World Water Day is a day to celebrate progress, but it's also a day to make a difference for those who are left behind, and to highlight certain themes, to create knowledge and engage people behind that thematic topic. In 1993, 22nd March, that's when the first World Water Day was celebrated. It followed from the summit in Rio 92. So 24 years later, it's celebrated around the world, shining a spotlight on different issues each year. So this year, the theme is wastewater, and the title of our campaign asks the question, why waste water? As you can imagine, this has a double meaning. Why on earth would we waste water, one of our most precious resources, when the global population is growing and consumption and demand for water is increasing from many sectors? Secondly, why wastewater? As in, why is wastewater an important issue? Is it really wasted water? Of course not. The answer is simple. When it comes to wastewater, we are much too wasteful. And not only wasteful per se, we're also polluting. Worldwide, over 80% of the wastewater from our homes, cities, industries, agriculture is released back to nature untreated and without being reused. This means that we're not only polluting the environment and our drinking water sources, but we're also missing a big opportunity, because we can stop looking at wastewater as something to ignore and discard and start seeing it for what it is, a valuable resource that we can use for the benefit of people and the ecosystems. And we will soon hear very much more about wastewater and wastewater as a resource. And I'm very particularly pleased that we here today not only have people speaking in general terms like myself now, but we also have an expo. We have opportunities tomorrow to go into depth and learn more about new technologies and how actually to take action and take this wastewater topic into something that is more practical in our own realities. At the end of 2015, member states of the United Nations adopted a very historic decision with Agenda 2030. This is an excellent policy framework, and it's a plan of action for all people, and not only for people, but for our planet, for prosperity. These are the three dimensions that we normally associate with sustainable development, but we can also add peace and partnership to those three. And the scale and ambition of Agenda 2030 is unprecedented. The Sustainable Development Goal on water and sanitation is part of Agenda 2030 and cuts across regions, sectors, and other goals simply because the nature of water as one of the driving forces is one of the driving forces, and also for addressing and ending extreme poverty, which is one of our greatest challenges and a requirement for sustainable development. If we look at the water goal, Goal 6, there is a dedicated target, 6.3, which addresses the need to improve ambient water quality and also to halve the proportion of untreated wastewater and increase water recycling and safe reuse. This is the theme of our World Water Day. Ladies and gentlemen, Agenda 2030 is transformative, and the Sustainable Development Goals will make a difference, and 2030 is not very far away, so there's urgency in this issue. In fact, it's only 13 World Water Days away. So in 2030, maybe some of us will convene again, looking back at what has been achieved at meetings similar to this one. And I hope at that point that we will be saying, yes, these meetings, these World Water Days, these expos, these in-depth discussions, they worked, they made a difference. We had people and stakeholders engaged and committed to try hard to get things to change. So for the next 13 World Water Days, we in UN Water, we're aiming high. We hope that we will achieve our targets and that we can reach water and sanitation for all. Ladies and gentlemen, happy World Water Day.
World Water Days before 2030. It sounds scary, but it's a reality. All it requires is determination from all of us. Another round of applause to the presentation. Thank you very much. Can we then move on to invite Mr. Giteshu Ngida, who is currently the UNESCO Comptroller, and as an Ethiopian, has had distinguished international career in auditing and financial management for prominent international companies, and also worked for the International Fund for Agricultural Development as Assistant Comptroller. Mr. Enigna joined UNESCO as Deputy Assistant Director General for Administration in June 2004. He has served as Deputy Director General since July 2010, and from January 2014 has taken on the added responsibility of managing the Communication and Information Program of UNESCO. He also serves in a number of not-for-profit international boards. Mr. Enigna has spent the last 20 years leading in managing international organizations, advancing the cause of poverty eradication, peace building, and sustainable development. Mr. Enigna brings to the international public service a broad range of leadership and management skills from his academic background and rich experiences in the private sector. He's also a specialist in change management, good governance, and transformative leadership in diverse international setting. May we therefore invite the Deputy Director General of UNESCO to the podium.
Your Excellency, President Zuma, honorable ministers, Premier Muchunu, distinguished representatives and colleagues of the United Nations agencies, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. On behalf of the Director General of UNESCO, Madam Irina Bokova, I would like to express my appreciation to the government of the Republic of South Africa for the organization of this global celebrations of the World Water Day in this beautiful city of Durban. Since the very first World Water Day in 1993, UNESCO led or co-led 5 times the preparation of this prestigious event, notably in 1997, where the theme was, "The world's water, is there enough?" In 2000, water for the 21st century. In 2008, water and culture. And in 2009, transboundary waters. And in 2013, water cooperation. Next year, UNESCO once again will co-lead the World Water Day campaign dedicated to the topic of nature for water. World Water Day is a call, ladies and gentlemen, for action to remind us of the critical role that freshwater resources play in our societies and in our lives. The coordinators of the 2017 World Water Day campaign, the United Nations Environmental Programme, United Nations Habitat, United Nations University, and the World Health Organization. The particular theme for this year highlights the underestimated role of wastewater in socio-economic development. On this important theme, I am pleased to announce that UNESCO's World Water Assessment Program, in close collaboration with a number of members and partners of UN Water, prepared the authoritative World Water Development Report that we will launch shortly as a pivotal part of today's program. This report, today and in the days to follow, will be introduced across the globe through high-level national and regional events. You might ask, why wastewater? The United Nations World Water Development Report shows that over 4 billion people, or 2/3 of the world's population, currently live in areas that experience water scarcity at least for a month of a year. The situation is expected to worsen due to changes in our lifestyle, population growth, and the effects of climate change. On the one hand, we witness a looming water crisis, and on the other, we are responsible for large amounts of wastewater that are dumped into the environment in an uncontrolled and unmanaged way. Basically, we're damaging ourselves by wasting wastewater, wasting the finite resources of valuable minerals and polluting fresh water and the environment. At the same time, we're risking our health and the future of our planet. Over 300,000 children under the age of 5 died in 2012 due to inadequate hygiene, sanitation, and dirty water. In the oceans, deoxygenated dead zones caused by a discharge of untreated wastewater is currently affecting an estimated 240,000 square kilometers of marine ecosystems, impacting on fisheries, livelihoods, and food chains. For visualization purposes, this is 1/5 the land of South Africa, or half of the size of Madagascar. South Africa is amongst the countries in Africa that illustrates good examples of using wastewater For instance, South Africa has been pioneering the internal treatment and recycling of wastewater in industries since the 1980s. This practice has the advantage of reducing both demand for and the amount of effluent discharged. As stated in the World Development Report 2017, I quote, "In a world where demands for fresh water are ever growing, where limited water resources are increasingly stressed by over-abstraction, pollution, and climate change, neglecting the opportunities arising from improved wastewater management is nothing less than unthinkable," unquote. Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, UNESCO is among the few agencies in the United Nations system that identifies assessment and management of water resources as one of its prime responsibilities. The World Water Assessment Program, the International Hydrologic Program, and over 60 water-related institutes and centers established under the auspices of UNESCO around the world are clear indications of our dedication to devote funds and human capacity for advancing this critical matter on the international agenda. I would like to openly announce our willingness to join forces with all parties involved in the complete and unfinished business of the Millennium Development Goals and to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals of Agenda 2030. With this, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to conclude by wishing you all a happy World Water Day and fruitful deliberations in today's program. Thank you very much.
Another round of applause. The unfinished business of the MDGs and the realization of the SDGs. Ladies and gentlemen, it now gives me an honor once more to invite Mr. Patrick Verkooyen, the Professor of Practice of Sustainable Development Diplomacy at the Fletcher School and visiting professor at Wageningen University and Research Center, a Dutch national. He became Special Representative for Climate Change at the World Bank in July 2012 and represents the World Bank in UN meetings on climate change and serves as Principal Advisor to the Vice President, specifically engaging with the UN and other partners leading global efforts in the climate change area. Professor Verkooyen served in the bank as head of Agriculture and Climate Change and as Senior Partnership Specialist. Before his appointment to the bank, he acted as the negotiator for the Department of International Affairs at the Ministry of Agriculture, Nature and Food Quality in the Netherlands. He has extensive experience in multilateral environmental negotiations and in negotiations with the EU, with a particular emphasis on sustainable development issues. He is also a member of the Joint Secretariat of the UN and World Bank convened high-level panel on water. Let us invite Professor Patrick Verkooyen from the World Bank to the podium.
Your Excellency, President Zuma, honorable ministers, honorable Premier, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to extend the greetings of President Jim Kim, President of the World Bank, to the people of South Africa, and to congratulate the organizers for this very important day, today, World Water Day, as many have said before. When we were approached, when the World Bank President was approached and the Secretary General of the United Nations was approached 4 weeks ago by the Minister's office by indicating we would have a major event in South Africa, we said, actually, are you really sure it's going to be March 22nd? It's 4 weeks away. And the response was, well, actually, we will do it the African way. And indeed you do, because this is a massive event. There are many events across the globe, from the Vatican to Washington, D.C., to Bangladesh and Canberra. This is the event today, and I congratulate President Zuma and his team for really delivering again. We all know that pressure on water is rising. Many have said that before, and that action is urgent. However, what is perhaps less known is that a recently released World Bank report, High and Dry, tells us that unless action is taken soon, water will become more scarce in regions where it is currently abundant, and scarcity will greatly worsen in regions where water is already in short supply. Because of this, some of these regions will see their growth rates decline by as much as 6% of their GDP by 2050. We do know that water insecurity could multiply the risk of conflict and drive migration. In short, water scarcity is a major threat to economic growth and stability around the world, and climate change obviously is making the problem worse. However, the world has agreed on a different path for sustainable growth, jobs, and prosperity, for a better future. We all know that the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Paris Agreement both agreed in 2015. And let's also not forget that the Paris Agreement basically was conceptualized here in Durban under the leadership of President Zuma in 2011. These global frameworks promises to leave no one behind in access to basic services, including water and sanitation, and to set the world towards a low-carbon, climate-resilient pathway. Yet, as these 17 SDGs, of which SDG 6 is the water SDG, makes clear, the world needs to transform the way it manages its water. To accelerate this transformation, as said before, World Bank President Jim Kim and UN Secretary General Guterres are convening a high-level panel on water with 11 heads of state and government and one advisor. It's the first time in the history of the United Nations and the World Bank to convene a panel of sitting heads of states and governments. And we're extremely proud and privileged of having President Zuma as one of the core leaders of this panel, and we're very grateful to you, sir. The core focus of the panel, as set by the minister over the 2 years of its mandate ending next year, is basically catalyzing the implementation of SDG 6, the water SDG. And the objectives and the approach of the panel is basically twofold. One is to motivate effective action. How? By developing a new narrative on water and shining a light on the best practices and showcase that to the world. Secondly, critically important, to advocate on financing and implementation. To have the most impact in the time it is left, which is less than a year, the panel, through its action plan adopted last September in New York by these heads of states, including President Zuma, will focus on the most impactful initiatives at the global level, while at the same time demonstrating leadership within their own boundaries. The individual panel members are committed to lead the way and encourage other leaders to do the same. To this end, today on March 22nd, the panel is announcing a range of actions as early steps towards SDG 6 implementation. Let me name a few. First, the panel is pleased that following an initiative led by the President of Tajikistan, one of the 11 members, that the UN has adopted a new international decade for water. Secondly, recognizing that water is life, panel co-chair, President Peña Nieto of Mexico, will convene a meeting of the panel in Cancun on May 25 to promote through Mexican leadership, while also highlighting African leadership, new initiatives on water and disaster risk reduction. On finance, keeping in mind that transformation to a water-secure world will come with new and significant financing needs. President Ader of Hungary has initiated a dialogue with MDBs, multilateral development banks, such as the World Bank, such as the African Development Bank, and other partners, to increase significantly investments into the sector, into the water sector. In this context, we at the World Bank, we're extremely grateful that over the recent completion of the replenishment of IDA 18, for those of you who don't know what IDA 18 is, it is our fund for the poorest countries, with a record of 75 billion in new commitments for the period 2017-2020 alone. On data, we will hear about in the second session from Australia. Australia has announced a new water data initiative. In the panel after this session, we will hear more from our Australian friends. The Netherlands, Prime Minister Mark Rutte, re-elected last week. He has started a multi-stakeholder dialogue on the principles for valuing water. And again here, South Africa is leading the way. Why this multi-stakeholder dialogue will come to South Africa. We'll go to a robust dialogue with you and others on the continent. As we speak, literally right now, the Pope is hosting a dialogue on this topic. So I suspect we're in good company. And last but not least, today here in Durban, as many have said before, together with all of you, President Zuma is launching the World Water Development Report, and we're extremely grateful to be part of this initiative. In closing, Excellencies, on this World Water Day 2017, the World Bank President, Jim Yong Kim, UN Secretary General, Mr. Guterres, is saluting you, governments, private sector, civil society, and academia, who are already working hard on this important topic, to do what you're doing to make sure that people have access to clean water and sanitation and ensure that our most precious natural water, fresh water, is sustainably managed. The panel is here to work with you, is to support your effort. We support your work, and we count on your efforts to make this dialogue over the coming days critically important. Lastly, a little bit off script. I would like to request President Zuma today to wear this pin of the SDGs. This is the pin adopted last year in September of the 17 SDGs. President Zuma is the leader, the global leader on SDG 6, and we would be very honored if you wear this pin, sir.
Another round of applause. I'm sure we heard of the billions. There is something coming between the SADC countries that look at the issues of infrastructure. And ladies and gentlemen, just to whet your appetite, did you know, other than him being the President of the Republic, that he's a member of this high-level panel? Did you also know that other than being the President of the Republic of South Africa, President Zuma is also the chair of the AU's Commission of Heads of States that look on infrastructure for Africa? Did you know? In Zulu, I don't know if they can translate it in French. Kuthiwa induku enhle igawulwa ezizweni. I can't say it in English, but yes, that's what it means. I'll try and tell you over dinner what it actually means. Thank you once more to the presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to invite then the Honorable Dr. Mohamed Abdel Eti, who is formerly the head of the Nile Water Unit at the Ministry, headed the technical office between the Eastern Nile countries, which is Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia, and also worked at the World Bank of Egypt prior to his appointment as Egyptian Minister of Water Resources and Irrigation. He also headed the Egyptian delegation in the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam negotiations with Ethiopia, as well as Egyptian water sector before his election as Vice President of the African Ministers' Council on Water for North Africa in 2016. May I invite then the AMCAO Vice President coming from North Africa to come and present his own input on behalf of the African ministers.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good morning. Honorable Minister, President Jacob Zuma, President of South Africa, Prime Minister, all ministers and deputy ministers present, UN Water family, AMCAO colleagues, regional and international partners, all protocols are observed. At the beginning of this speech, I would like to thank the government of South Africa and our colleagues here for the warm reception and organization of this event. On behalf of the Council of Ministers and Executive Committee of the African Ministers, Council of Ministers AMCAO, I am delighted to welcome you to this year's World Water Day celebration and the global launch of the UN World Water Development Report 2017. Today, there are over 663 million people living without safe water supply close to home. Many of them are in Africa, spending countless hours queuing or trekking to distant sources and coping with the health impact of using contaminated water. The Sustainable Development Goals launched in 2015 include goal number 6, which target to ensure everyone has access to safe water by 2030, making water a key issue in the fight to eradicate extreme poverty. Also in 2017, edition of the United Nations World Water Development Report entitled Wastewater, the Untapped Resource, demonstrate how to improve wastewater management, how improved wastewater management generates social, environmental, and economic benefits essential for sustainable development. In particular, the report we are here to launch seeks to inform decision makers, governments, civil societies, and private sector about the importance of managing wastewater as a valued and sustainable source of water, energy, and nutrients, and other recoverable byproducts, rather than something to be disposed or to be ignored. Improved wastewater management is therefore not only critical to achieving the Sustainable Development Goal on clean water and sanitation, SDG 6, but also to other goals of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. By 2030, global demand for water is expected to grow by 50%, and most of this demand will be in our cities, hence the need for a new approach to wastewater collection management is needed. At AMCAO, our commitment to achieving an Africa where there is equitable and sustainable use and management of water resources for poverty alleviation and socio-economic development, regional cooperation, and the environment remain unwavering and very much on the course as we lead to the continent on sustainable path of improved wastewater management, particularly in the industrial and agriculture sector. Actually, in Africa, we rely on importing most of our needs, knowledge, technology. Our aim actually in Africa is to have our own appropriate technology and build our indigenous knowledge and also our indigenous technology. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the focus of this year's World Water Day on wastewater and how can we reduce and reuse it to help achieve sustainable development goals resonates clearly the outcome of the 6th Africa Water Week, which firmly established Dar es Salaam roadmap to achieving Sustainable Development Goal 6, as well as other interlinking SDGs connected with water resources management and improved sanitation delivery. At the flagship of the water event last year in Dar es Salaam, Africa anonymously resolved to follow holistic focus and nexus approach of productive wastewater management in the planning and implementation of water supply and sanitation projects at all levels. Though of the challenge that Africa is facing, I'm sure that all of us together, we can convert these challenges into opportunities. At the end, I'd like to thank you all and wish all the best for the deliberations during this conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we give our Vice President of AMCAW another round of applause? Ladies and gentlemen, he's born and bred here in the province of KwaZulu-Natal from a place that I'm sure all of you now know called Nkandla. He's a child of the ANC. He has served the people of South Africa prior to the dawn of democracy as a freedom fighter. He has served his time in prison. He has gone into incarceration over years in Robben Island, somewhere in Cape Town. He came out of prison. He was taken out of South Africa by the African National Congress, and he worked in the frontline states as one of those who have actually kept the information and knowledge of the African National Congress during those trying times, dealing with intelligence work, gathering what the others were plotting against our country and those that were actually delaying our own emancipation as a nation. He's a trained soldier. He has been a leader of the ANC here in KwaZulu-Natal, and by the way, he also reminded me this morning that he is a former provincial minister of the provincial government of KwaZulu-Natal. So he was in charge of developing the economy, the long-term economic development strategy of the province of KwaZulu-Natal. And even prior to that, I'm sure we all knew of some of the challenges that we went through as a country. He championed and spearheaded the peace process and reconciliation in this province. He has been a leader of the African National Congress, has been the Deputy Secretary General of the ANC, the ruling party, the Deputy President of the ANC, and is now the President of the African National Congress, and is serving his second term that he will complete in 2019 post the elections when we have a new president. He is now here and today representing some of his peers, the 11 high-level panel of heads of states that are representing the world in a very important target that focuses on water and sanitation for all in the whole world. As I have said, it is none other than His Excellency, the President of the Republic of South Africa in the ANC, President Jacob Gedleyihlekisa Zuma, who's now going to come to the podium and address this particular day, the World Water Day. And by the way, the world is looking at all of us as he's going to present here, including the United Nations. Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister Nomvula Mokonyane, the Minister who is directing the program today, Minister of Water Affairs. The Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Mr. Willis Mkhunu, Honorable Minister of Water Affairs once again, ministers who are here, and deputy ministers, from South Africa and the other member states, the President of the African Development Bank, representatives of UN Water and Women for Water Partnership and all international agencies, the DDG of UNESCO, members of the diplomatic corps, esteemed delegates and guests, it is my honor to address you today on World Water Day on behalf of the United Nations World Water Assessment Programme's high-level panel on water. The high-level panel is co-chaired by United Nations Secretary General Mr. Antonio Guterres and the President of the World Bank Group, Dr. Jim Yong Kim. The panel seeks to inspire world leaders to provide political leadership and to galvanize support to accelerate the implementation of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and in particular, SDG 6 on water and sanitation. Today is a special occasion marking World Water Day 2017 and also the launch of the 2017 World Water Development Report. This key report is aimed at drawing attention to the current dismal global status of water and sanitation and to inspire commitment to an urgent call for action by world leaders to ensure the availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the bleak global picture presented in the 2017 World Water Development Report requires world leaders to urgently prioritize the improvement of access to essential water and sanitation services. Thus far, 147 countries have met the SDG drinking water target. 95 countries have met the sanitation target, and only 77 countries have met both. These statistics do not do justice in conveying the development and health challenges faced by so many people, or in contextualizing how unevenly these basic services are distributed around the world and within societies. For an example, it was reported that in 2011, nearly 60% of the world's 1 billion extremely poor people lived in just 5 countries. It seems that little has changed since 2011. Looking ahead, this unacceptable situation will only get worse unless we join forces around the world to create equal chances for success at all levels in our race against time to secure the most precious resource of fresh water for current and future generations. The United Nations Commission on Population and Development estimates that the global population, which currently stands at about 7.3 billion people, may grow to 9.7 billion by the year 2050, with as many as 3.1 billion additional residents of urban areas. The largest increase in population is expected to happen here in Africa, followed by Asia. These are already amongst the regions most adversely affected by water and sanitation problems. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, whilst vividly presenting the distressing situation the international community currently finds itself in with regard to water and sanitation, the report and its call for action also sends a message of hope. We have the potential to create a new and more positive economic and social developmental pathway through, amongst others, water infrastructure investments, valuing water, catalyzing change, building partnerships, and international cooperation, as well as creating better human settlements and data. We have the United Nations 2030 agenda to point the way. Here in Africa, we have an even longer term and complementary sustainable development strategy in the form of the African Union's 2069 agenda. We also have practical examples on how to make progress towards achieving more equal societies, such as the gender mainstreaming strategy in the water sector, advanced by the African Ministers' Council on Water. We also have the 2015 East London Gender Declaration that guides the regional sector decisions on water and women, as led by the Women for Water Partnership Network. On behalf of the high-level panel, I would like to welcome and acknowledge these strategic interventions. I also wish to further highlight the leadership role that Africans are playing in correctly contextualizing access to water and sanitation as a basic development right. Here in South Africa, we have even enshrined the basic right of all to sufficient food and water in our Constitution. Much more still remains to be done to fulfill this right, both here in South Africa and across the world, reinforcing the enduring relevance of our South African saying that says, and I quote, "Water is life, sanitation is dignity," unquote. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the commitment of the members of the high-level panel to the implementation of Agenda 2030 and SDG 6 remains unwavering. We believe in providing a platform for water with the other sustainable development goals and the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities on which action on the Agenda 2030 is premised. The willingness of developed countries to honor their commitments on means of implementation support is a fundamental requirement to enable developing countries to achieve the SDGs. The panel, therefore, calls upon all leaders to contribute more and to build on what they are already doing in their respective countries, such as by advocating and championing activities and actions in support of the implementation of the SDG 6. This includes the launching of so-called lighthouse initiatives as best practice and models, and the hosting of international and regional conferences to share information. One of the key initiatives by the panel, which is being launched today, is the Access to Water and Sanitation Services for 10 Billion People initiative. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite all political leaders to support the political declaration that we will all adopt today on World Water Day 2017. We should all commit to achieving the pledge of leaving no one behind globally and in our respective countries and communities in support of SDG 6 on water and sanitation. On this important day, it is befitting to recall the words of the 20th century poet W.H. Auden, who said, quote unquote, "Thousands have lived without love, no one without water." If we are to go by these words of wisdom, let us all take action and spare no effort to free our fellow men, women, and children from the abject and dehumanizing conditions of extreme poverty. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is now my pleasure to declare this summit open and to officially launch the 2017 World Water Development Report. I thank you.
Another round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, let's all thank His Excellency the President, as well as the member of the high-level panel, for the address that he has presented, which will go as part of our records come 2030 when we assess the work that has been done so far. Once more, let me remind everyone here today and those who are viewing the proceedings that for us to achieve the SDGs by 2030 deadline, the importance of ordinary people being empowered to act cannot be stressed enough. People have to be empowered to know that they actually can make a difference and make a change. And in this regard, it is with anticipation and awe that we have reached the most important part of our program as presented by His Excellency President Jacob Zuma. I hereby then invite His Excellency Pietro Giovanni Donisi, the ambassador, who's the permanent representative of Italy to South Africa, whom we all welcome as he delivers the introductory remark on the launch of the UN World Water Development Report 2017.
Ngiyabonga, Madam Minister. Your Excellency, Honorable Zuma, the President of the Republic of South Africa, Honorable Minister, and I dare to say, dear friend, Mokonyane, Minister of Water of Egypt, Honorable Ministers, and Honorable Premier Mukunu of this wonderful province of South Africa, which today hosts us so well. Friends from the United Nations and UNESCO and the World Bank, dear people, it is a great pleasure for me to be today in Durban, in this wonderful city, to celebrate the World Water Day together with you. I wish first to congratulate with the government of South Africa for its leading efforts to bring water issues high on the political agenda of the world. This amplifies the voices of billions of people who still today lack access to safe water and sanitation services, to life and dignity, in other words. Italy stands close to South Africa in this effort as an active and concerned member of the United Nations. Italy is tightly linked to UNESCO, and this link is most commonly perceived through the outstanding number of sites that our country has the privilege to host in the list of World Heritage Sites. As a country of culture, high technology and research, Italy actively supports the improvement of scientific-based knowledge at national level with a network of excellent universities, public research institutions and research centers. At an international level, hosting several organizations on its territory in extraordinary cities such as Rome, Trieste and Turin. And especially today, I am particularly proud of the long-standing commitment of the Government of Italy to financial support to the production of the United Nations World Water Development Report series through supporting the UN Water Assessment Program of UNESCO. As it is known, this progress is based in Perugia, Italy. The new edition of the report focuses on wastewater, the untapped resource. It provides essential tools and recommendations for policymakers in advancing this ambitious and far-sighted agenda. Modern, concerned evidence based on policies cannot disregard the urgent need to implement at a global scale essential tools and recommendations for policymakers in advancing this ambitious and far-sighted agenda. It must ensure that the ever-increasing demand for water will be fully satisfied for economic, social and environmental goals. The 4Rs approach will be shortly introduced by Professor Uhlenbrock, and this approach must ensure that the ever-increasing demand for water will be fully satisfied for the economic, social and environmental goal. This is a new motto that should be guiding our strategies from now on. When speaking of water, it is inevitable to think about agriculture, a vital sector that is responsible for 70% of abstractions worldwide. In the broad field of agricultural sciences, Italy is one of the main donors to the Food Agriculture Organization and to other worldwide organizations in this field. With particular reference to goal number 6, ensure access to clean water and sanitation for all, the Italian Ministry of Environment and the South African Department for Water and Sanitation signed last October last year a memorandum of understanding. This is to strengthen the technical cooperation in the field of sustainable water integrated management in response to climate change adaptation and climate resilience. Within this framework, a rationale for reuse of water certainly is an important topic of cooperation between South Africa and Italy. Food security is another challenge of this century, and Italy is equally committed to ensure support to scientific research in this specific area. As first international donor, the Italian government also supported the activities of the International Center for Genetic Engineering and Biotechnology, whose Cape Town section here in South Africa is going to develop as a food security center this year, a point of reference for this region and for the world as a whole. In this key, we are preparing a memorandum of understanding also with the South African Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries to promote cooperation between our two countries on agricultural research, including water resource management for agriculture. So we are strongly committed to sustain the research on water and the promotion of knowledge-based practice. Our action in South Africa and with South Africa strictly reflects this orientation of the Italian government and works to realize cooperation both at operational level and at the scientific level. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you will be inspired by the finding of this World Water Development Report. And I wish to thank again the government of South Africa for leading this initiative, the members and partners of UN Water for bringing together such a high-level program today here, and all of you for raising your voices on this World Water Day. I think it is now time to listen to the main findings of the World Water Development Report 2017, and it is then my pleasure to invite Professor Uhlenbrock to the floor, which now I hand over to him. Thank you very much.
Looking for the beamer.
What is that? Is it this one?
I'm afraid I need some assistance. Your Excellency, President Jacob Zuma, Deputy Director General of UNESCO Ngida Getachew, Premier Themba Binkizi, Honorable Ministers, members of UN organizations, members of the Diplomatic Corps, ladies and gentlemen, friends, all protocol observed. It is a distinct pleasure to stand here today and present to you the main findings of the World Water Development Report 2017. And at the beginning, I really would like to stress this is the UN delivering as one. It's UNESCO hosting and leading the World Water Assessment Program. We produced this report. However, it's really the outcome of a joint collaborative effort of 31 agencies, UN agencies, and 38 UN partners. Together, we are UN Water, and it's a good example for the UN delivering as one. It's not always that easy, dear Price Chair of UN Water, because I have 3 children, I found that already a challenge. But 31 UN agencies and 38 partners to collaborate and every year to publish one report is a challenge, but we managed to do so, and this is a particularly exciting one. I still would like to have a pointer, a beamer to... Okay, let me start with summarizing the main findings and just look at the state of the world water resources. Overall, the freshwater withdrawal has been increasing over the last 30 years by roughly 1%. If the resource is finite and you constantly take out always 1% more per year, that is becoming unsustainable. The global demand has been increasing and it will continue to escalate in the years to come. Roughly 70% of the water use is for agriculture, some 20% by industry and energy production, and only 10% for household consumption. And from this 10%, less than 1% is actually what we drink. So it's not about the drinking water, it's the overall water demand, and that will continue to increase in the years to come. Another challenge for the water resources is the accelerating urbanization, what we observe globally. You see here the increase in rural and urban population in different parts of the world, and it's particularly also sub-Saharan Africa where we see a large increase, particularly also of the urban population. And where do these people live? These additional 2.3 billion people that we're going to have on the globe by 2050, many going to live in slums. That's what you see here on this distribution of the percentage of inhabitants living in informal, highly densely populated peri-urban, urban areas, and that's only developing countries here, or in countries in transition, demonstrated on this slide, but you see a very large percentage, and again, in sub-Saharan Africa, it's probably some 60+% that are living there, and it will continue to increase. If I'm speaking about accelerating urbanization, I would like to stress it's not the global north, it's really in the global south where the main urbanization is happening, and it's particularly the medium-sized cities that are growing very rapidly. Furthermore, if we look at water scarcity, it has been said a few numbers already by the previous speakers, but some 2/3 or so of the global population live in a world where at least once a month their water resources demand cannot be satisfied. 500 million people live in an area where their demand is actually the factor 2 of what is locally available in a renewable way. So they increase the, this is unsustainable. 500 million people live there, so it needs some interbasin transfer, it needs some unsustainable management of fossil groundwater and other resources. This is not going to work on the long term. Therefore, we need to change. Quickly about climate change. Obviously, climate change is one of the major drivers, together with urbanization, population increase, change of the diet, etc., etc. And I spare you a lot of detailed figures on the future predictions of climate change. But what we can see by looking at many different scenarios for the future, we can see that very likely, and also for the sub-Saharan Africa region, the climate change will exacerbate the challenges, particularly because the frequency and the severity of floods and droughts is likely to increase. So these extreme El Nino impacts we had over the last 3 years, first from some very dry years in Zimbabwe, was there last week with the minister. She told me, Professor, you know, the reservoirs were really literally empty, yeah? And then this year a very wet year with very severe flooding. That is unfortunately likely to continue to increase and even might become more severe. How exactly? We don't know. Let me move on from water quantity to water quality issues. Here you see a global world map where you see the pathogen pollution, and you see that in many parts of the world it is orange or red, indicating that more than 1/3 of the global rivers are severely affected by pathogen pollution through untreated wastewater. If we continue with the biological oxygen demand, that's an indicator about the organic pollution. You see a few areas are green. Green means no increase. So it doesn't mean that the water quality is completely okay there, but at least no increase if you see the period in the early 90s compared to 2008 to 2010. But many areas are orange and red, and that means it's really an increasing trend, or even an increasing trend of particular concern. Why is it like this? Because we have more wastewater than ever. Yeah? We constantly increase the withdrawal and we discharge wastewater largely back to the environment. I said before that about 70% of the global water withdrawn are used in agriculture. Here you see these are the 70%. From this, almost half is agricultural drainage. That means it goes back very often without any treatment, going back to the next water bodies. But also there's a lot of discharge from the municipal water use. It's roughly 11%, and 8% becomes wastewater. Higher percentage is treated, but still becomes wastewater going back to the ecosystem. And from industry demand, these are similar numbers. So that means globally the quantity and the loads to our rivers, the loads to our groundwater bodies has been increasing and will continue to increase. From all this wastewater, we found out by putting this report together that more than 80% of the global wastewater is released back to the environment without proper collection, without proper treatment, and just discharged back to the environment. And these are the reasons why we see this degradation of the water quality. These were a few facts on the water, on the water situation, the state of the global resources. Let me continue and say a few words about the human health and a link to the Sustainable Development Agenda. We want to discuss that more in detail at the panel discussion just after this. Well, if you're watching this little movie and you know the situation in many poor neighborhoods, how absolutely staggering the hygiene and wastewater conditions are in some of these settlements. And you heard many numbers, and it's always so many 100,000 people die. It's difficult to imagine, and therefore I found one calculation a bit interesting, that whenever an airplane crashes, it makes it to the news immediately. You know, if a big airplane, 300 people die, terrible situation. But ladies and gentlemen, every single day, 3 airplanes are crashing. 3 airplanes full of children under 5 years old because of inappropriate wastewater dealing, because of inappropriate hygiene, dirty drinking water, poor sanitation situation. Every single day, 3 airplanes are crashing. 1,000 children a day die because of this. And that makes up to 361,000 children die every year because of this situation. Something has to change. And something did change over the Millennium Development Goals. Another 2 billion people gained access to improved sanitation, but you see here the world map with the yellow-orange areas where there is particular attention needed because of not having access to not enough having access to proper sanitation. 2.4 billion people still don't have that access. Almost 1 billion people has to practice open defecation. The Sustainable Development Goals has been mentioned repeatedly already today. It's a fantastic agenda. It's exciting. It really puts the emphasis on we think in the right direction. There's a separate goal also as illustrated by Dr. Harlin on SDG 6.3, which really directly goes into the wastewater component, and that's a new goal, and it requires a number of activities to reach that. Otherwise, the detrimental impacts on the health but also on the economics and the ecosystems is just not bearable. However, addressing now the colleague from the World Bank, still 80% of the countries from a recent WHO report reported that there's insufficient financing even to meet the national targets on the Sustainable Development Goal 6.3, so investments for water, sanitation and hygiene, and even a higher percentage if we consider the bigger picture of achieving the SDG by 2030. So we have to change our mindset. Something has to change. If we want to achieve these numbers, you see here in low-income countries, we have to go from 92% untreated wastewater to 46%. That would mean halving the population not connected to proper sanitation. In the high-income countries, the numbers are a bit lower. Roughly 30% of the wastewater is not treated there, and we want to achieve 15% in the next, 13 years from now. How are we going to do that? How do we meet that challenge? I'm coming now to the second half of my talk and really looking at ways for improving this wastewater management. And I would like to offer you 4 R's: reducing, removing, reusing, and recovering. Too long we have seen wastewater as a burden, as a nuisance, something we want to get rid of because it's all these negative impact on the health, on the environment, so just discharge it, get rid of it. But we have to change that mindset. We have to see how we can utilize this resource properly. But first and foremost, I would like to stress it's about reducing. Preventing a problem is always much cheaper than trying to repair it later. So therefore, reducing the wastewater impacts, the wastewater flows, as well as some pollutants that we put into the water that are unnecessary. For instance, microbeads, which we put in our cosmetics and in our toothpaste and whatever to make the teeth a little bit more shiny, but they actually don't. But which is a good example for microplastics that wastewater treatment plants cannot handle. So just ban this material. That's much better than trying in a very expensive process later trying to repair it. So ban material that shouldn't be there and try to reduce as much as we can. There's exciting developments, certainly also here in South Africa, about zero liquid discharge from industry and really trying to minimize and reuse internally and reduce the wastewater discharge as much as we can. Second, if we have not reduced enough, we have to remove the contaminants. How do we do that? By collecting the wastewater and treating it. Yeah? Collection and treatment is costly, needs an upfront investment, and there's natural treatment as well as wastewater treatment plants, which has to happen, which is absolutely central. What is better, central or decentralized? For central, in certain circumstances, it could be that centralized systems are better because there's a economy of scale, and then it's easier to recapture some of the material. I'll come to that. But in many areas, we realized how much more effective it is to rather work in this decentralized system. Here on the right-hand side, that's a decentralized system in a new neighborhood where they just collect the wastewater from a couple of houses. Mind you that often more than 60% of the investment just go into the collection system and its maintenance. Yeah? So decentralized systems are often more expensive, and decentralized systems can be very important. And it's not necessarily only an engineered system. We shouldn't forget, and that's one of the main messages, we shouldn't forget about the ecosystem's functions. Ecosystem can really help us to achieve affluent qualities that are really comparable with industrialized wastewater plants, that really help us to achieve cheaper in terms of investment and cheaper also in operational and maintenance costs appropriate water treatment of our wastewater. Low-cost technology is important. Let me come to the reusing part. Reusing is absolutely essential. Not all the water before reusing need to be treated up to crystal clear drinking water standards. That is absolutely not necessary. Certainly when we want to reuse the water in agriculture, for instance, it's even bad because all the nutrients that are in the wastewater we would eliminate instead of using it for agriculture. Others are recharge, industrial processes, heating, cooling, and potable reuse, so drinking water use. And we advocate for treating, but treat the water fit for purpose, the wastewater, to optimize on the investments. And I'm pleased to say also in the industrial processes, South Africa has been leading since decades the so-called blow-down water, which Eskom has been collecting. It's kind of condensed water from cooling processes. Condensed water, then with special treatment, has been reused on site again and again, and that is the right way to minimize. To optimize the reuse and minimize the discharge to the environment. Example from Accra, also reuse in agriculture can be very effective. In Ghana, in Accra and Ghana, wastewater treatments plants are not properly functioning. There's power cuts and all sorts of issues related to that. But by locally reusing the wastewater for urban agriculture, it really provided quite some nice annual income for farmers, $400 to $800 a year for farmers. And a market value has been achieved of some 40 million with these. And 200,000 urban dwellers could benefit from that production in terms of food security, but also in being better off economically. Let me come to my last part. Wastewater has water, for sure. But there's many other interesting byproducts that really make this not waste. Maybe we should get rid of the term wastewater. As the minister said this morning in an interview where we were together, it's wrong. And if you see in other languages, like German, for instance, or French or whatever, it's water after use. It's not a waste. It's water that has been used. So it doesn't mean that it's waste. Huh? And that's certainly true here as well, because it has water to offset the issues related to water scarcity, but it also has nutrients, phosphorus, nitrogen, interesting metals sometimes that can be used as fertilizer or used again to produce cell phones, etc., etc. And it has an energy content through the organic material in the wastewater that can be used to produce bioenergy. And nowadays we are able to design wastewater plants in such a way that they are energy positive, so that they're little powerhouses. So with the organic material we can generate additional power. And that together adds to the revenue streams that we can gain from wastewater, and it's the upfront investment that is there, that is needed to invest, can be earned back, through seeing it as a resource and also treating it as a resource. Ladies and gentlemen, so it's about it's not a burden, it's a valuable resource. In this sense, this is mineral fertilizer made from wastewater with very high phosphorus contents. Let me closely come to the last part of my presentation, and I would like to speak about when we put the report together, what needs to change. How can we create an enabling environment for change? And at the beginning, I would like to say it's not only technology. It's certainly not only the more research, and I say that as a professor. I love my research, but no, it's not necessarily only technological research which provides the obstacle here. Often the obstacles are non-technical. They're related to legislation, related to financing, related to innovations in financing maybe, and enforcement of good legislation. That's my first point. And you see here that 11 out of 22 Arab states, for instance, have adopted a legislation that allow the treatment of wastewater. The minister of Egypt proudly said to me that this is one of the countries that have the highest reuse of wastewater in agriculture of the whole world. Jordan is another example, Israel, etc., from this region. Yeah? So we have to study how they do that, what can we learn from it. Second, cost recovery. It's about innovative finance mechanism, and it's also by utilizing all the revenue streams that can be obtained from the wastewater. Yeah? Then it can also help to offset the investments that are there. Often smaller, decentralized wastewater plants, also utilizing the ecosystems, constructed wetlands for instance, are financially more interesting, certainly in a kind of developing country context. More interesting because of the lower investments needed, but also for the lower investments, for the lower costs in operation and maintenance. Minimizing the risk is absolutely essential.
All right, just bringing you out of that summit, a very interesting presentation that we've been hearing there with some alarming statistics. This, of course, at the official opening of the UN Summit on World Water Day, which is taking place in Durban. Also, the official release of the 17th edition of the World Water Developmental Report and a political declaration which is to be adopted, which was mentioned briefly by President Zuma. He is, of course, the chair of the Heads of State Committee on the UN high-level panel on water. So the focus really is on health, sanitation, the 2030 SDGs, which of course include water availability. So I just want to take you through a few points that have come out of that report. Interestingly, the demand for water, which has been increasing and will continue to increase year by year by at least 1%. An additional 2.3 billion people will be living in cities by 2050. So urbanization is increasing, which of course impacts on water availability. And urbanization will predominantly be happening in the global south. Water scarcity. 2/3 of the world's population lives in water scarce areas, and this of course is something that is unsustainable and needs to change. Climate change is also affecting water scarcity, and then there's the degradation of water quality, which is increasing. So we have far more wastewater than ever before. We're withdrawing more water, using more water, but then the amount of wastewater that we put back into the environment is increasing. So over 80% of the world's wastewater is released into the environment without treatment. So those are just some of the points that have been coming out of that report. We'll bring more to you from this World Water Day Summit, which is of course taking place over the next 2 days. Let's just take a look now quickly at some of our other headline stories for today. Well, 3 suspects are set to appear in the Mamelodi Magistrates Court for allegedly breaking into the